arriving here in Jersey, fighting villains from afar. You gotta find first gear in your giant robot car. You dig giant robots, I dig giant robots, we dig giant robots, just dig giant robots. Nice.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the first pilot test episode of the Anime Boomer podcast. So what we're doing here today is we're actually pre-recording this one. Hopefully in the future we'll be able to do actual live streams that you guys can watch and then catch it on the feed later. But like I said, this is a test episode, kind of a pilot, sort of experiment, if you will, of the format and the hosts as well. So everybody's kind of familiar with all of us before, but just to kind of remind people who we are, I'll give a brief introduction. I'm Gator, co-host of one of the most notorious late night shows on YouTube. And with me today is Spooky Weeb Trash.
Oh.
You gonna say anything, Spooky? Just say, oh.
I hate anime. That's why I call myself Spooky Weeb Trash, and I'm on a gay anime podcast, so hello.
Absolutely based. We've also got another very notorious figure in the anime community. His Twitter account has started incredible shitstorms. Cody from Anime Outsiders.
Oh,
How
yeah,
you doing, Cody?
Anime shit poster. Yeah.
I'm semi-retired now, but I kind of miss the AO Twitter sometimes, but I don't have the wherewithal to bring it back yet. I'll probably will one day. I'll probably get bored one day. It's like, you know what? I mean, we need somewhere. Because the site, we haven't updated the site in a while, just because no real reason. We just haven't had anything to put on there. But eventually we'll probably need an announcement springboard again, so we'll probably bring it back. But
I just remember the fight, like all of the silly internet slap fights over the stuff you guys would post.
My crowning achievement is still the dating thread. I can't top that. Are you familiar with the dating thread?
I don't actually think I've seen the dating thread.
I'm
Okay,
not either.
So
What is
frequently, most of the time when I would, because the group of us at AO would often post to the Twitter for different reasons. I would usually do a lot of the shit stirring when I was bored at work at my day job. So one day I'm sitting in my car and on my break, and I'm like, I'm bored. I'm just bored, so I'm gonna throw something out there, like throw out a line and see if I get a bite. So I did this whole thread on the AO Twitter, and it was because most people on Anna Twitter are fucking lonely. And
Not gay anime nerds. I never would assume that they're just a bunch of lonely people wanting attention. Huh.
Yeah, it's a lot of either like Coomer posting or depression posting. Like it alternates between the two. So I was like, well, it's a lot since y'all seem depressed and lonely, and you're all like TFW no GF all the time. Here's some dating advice, right? Because I've gotten women. I have one currently. Our
This man
staff
fucks.
our staff, most of our staff has some significant other or another, either married or dating. We at AO know how to socially interact. So let me give you some tips. And I specifically did it. Not as a, not kind of flex, because I know people are hearing that and thinking, oh, you're flex. No, it was just to rile people up. So what we did was, it was legitimate advice phrased in a way that was, how do I put it? Like confrontative, but not overly confrontative. Like it wasn't a kill stream dating advice thread, but it was more like a, it was more like
You didn't recommend what kind of pills to get where, and you just happened to pass out at parties?
No, it wasn't like Liz, you little fucking wussies or anything like that. No, it was a lot of it was specifically designed to call people out. So the big one, because it was a bunch of bullet points, like 1, do this, do that. But the one that really got the most people was, I think it was like 0.4 or 5, was autism is not an excuse. Women are going, like something like, if you have low social skills, you can still develop those social skills that you're missing, which you're going to need because you're going to need that first impression. A woman isn't going to see that you're autistic and give you a handicap. Like, well, clearly he's autistic. I'll give him a chance. No, if you come at a woman stuttering and saying inappropriate things, they're going to be like, okay, bye.
He makes really nice puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
It makes my pussy wet, I will say.
He really likes trains.
Like, oh, you know.
He's a Minecraft YouTuber. Oh, wait, hold on.
You know how many facts about Scooby-Doo? Oh, tell me more. You know, you're not going to get that.
I like Scooby-Doo.
The idea was, yeah, that's technically true, but you shouldn't say it, that kind of thing. That's what the dating advice thread was.
That's something that you bring up your autistic, like something specific like that. You bring that up after the fact they already accepted you're autistic and they also enjoy Scooby-Doo, and that's what you talk about. That's a very specific moment you bring up.
You've got to control your power level before you're in the door, and once you're in the door and you've shut and you've locked it, you're just like, okay, so I'm really autistic, and
see, that basically it was that, but less fun and jovial, as you put it, because that was the idea, right? And it worked. It worked so well. Like that day it was blowing up, and like at work I'm checking this thing and the responses were the funniest fucking thing. You had your people that were like indignant or whatever, and that was, you know, but the best were the people that were like, they were on a mission now. They were on a mission to like let the world know how awful we were, or they were just the nerd rage was primed and they were ready for a fight. You know, they were slinging it. But my favorite of that night was when Ian Miles Chong quote tweeted it and just called it gross.
That is amazing. When you get the full chungus, you know that your thread has won.
We got Ian Miles Chong who said it was gross. We got Ian Miles Chong to react to it like a Tumblr girl seeing a woman in pain on TV. It was great. But then the dating thread sat. It had done its job. It had got us some laughs. I shared the responses with the guys at AO. It was a good time. And then I responded to some of them to try to poke, because I learned early when the AO Twitter that if you find someone that seems a little unhinged, poke them, and just keep poking them until they give you the best reaction. Like
the salt, yeah.
It's not even just the salt. Quick tangent just for this story. It was like one of the first times we ever messed with someone on the AO Twitter. It was like the moment that told me this was fun and I should do this was some guy got mad at some anime opinion we posted, and I just poked him, and he kept getting madder and madder, and I just kept snarking back, and eventually he said, like, what was it? I'm trying to remember the exact phrasing, but I remember how the phrasing ended, and I'll tell you, and you'll see why. It was something like, if you act like that or whatever, you're just gonna be alone in your parents' basement without any friends, like I am. And I'm like, you could have just put a period, like a couple words there. Why did you think like that? Why did you add like I am? Why would you ever add that? Why would you ever let anybody know that? You could have just thrown out the insult. That was the best part, because that kept going through my memory. You could have just said you'll like die alone, like live alone with no friends in your mother's basement. You could have just ended it there. Why did you? Why? Why did you add like I am?
I guess I probably felt like he was doing you a service. You know, he's like, you're gonna be alone like me. I'm giving you a warning not to be a miserable
loser.
Excuse me, like me.
That wasn't his tone. He was just angry. I feel like he just snapped. I guess maybe the whole thing was dredging. I don't know what it was, but I was dead laughing. It was
his neck
three
beard
little
turned
words.
Gold, his eyes turned green.
Like 3 little words just ended me that day. But so the dating thread sat dormant, did its job. We had a good time with it, and then we go on doing our do the thing, and then I started getting responses from like 40-year-old moms and shit. Like, what the hell? And then I noticed they're all like these parents of autistic children that are like these virtue signaling parents of all, like, look how my child is autistic. And
they had like the puzzle pieces in their avatars and stuff like that.
They didn't know. They had a lot of it was a lot of selfies because they're boomer parents on Twitter, so it's all like Facebook avatars. You
It's
know what I
like
mean?
they're wearing the sunglasses in the front seat of the car.
No. That's the right way. I'm talking about like the family photo avatar. Yeah, again, it's like
Okay.
a Facebook avatar.
Okay.
So they start popping up, and it's like the most, dude. These are the worst people.
I
And
wonder.
they stumbled upon the dating thread somehow because of the autism is not an excuse line.
I have to wonder if maybe like if they just Google or like me look it up on Twitter like autistic reactions or something, or maybe like they had actual autistic children of theirs, but like mommy, fight this guy's battle for me. Or fight my battle for me against this guy, please, mommy.
Yeah, that was one of the few times I got sincere on the Twitter because I said these people are scum because they're just this is like a new Munchausen's type thing. They're parading their autistic children around for their own virtue. Like, God, look how my child is autistic and I'm okay with that. Why do you want to pat on the back for being okay with that?
You should already be okay with it.
Yeah.
You should love your child regardless.
Why do you want a fucking cookie for having an autistic child? What do you like? Oh, you go through so much. First of all, no, you don't. Yes, you go through stuff, but you don't go through the shit like someone with Down syndrome or someone with like multiple sclerosis goes to. Your child has no social skills. That's it. If they're low functioning autism, maybe I'll give it to you. And even then, I still don't care. Like, shut the fuck up. You're awful. You're using your children for your own virtue. You're using your own children to prop yourself up and jack yourself off. Go to fucking hell. I hate all you. Yeah, so they just in droves. And then you had people who did have autism that made it their personality trait. We're getting on this. And it was just, I think I might have saved a folder somewhere on my computer of like all the profiles that came at us because it was the funniest goddamn thing. These were people that were sharing way too much on their profiles. People that were better. Sometimes you understand why people just use anime avatars because the truth is better left unsaid. It was just, and I was fine making fun of them because these were awful, genuinely awful people.
Mm.
And that was like a year after the dating thread had been posted.
A year after?
Yeah. Like about a year. I don't think it was a full year. I think
So someone must have posted the thread on like some boomer autism forum, and then the boomers
or like Facebook
just started
or something.
Yeah, or Facebook, and they just started flooding in to complain about it.
It must have been. I would assume that it might have been from Ian Miles Chong's response where he called it gross, because I think it was the same tweet with the autism is not an excuse line. A lot of it was just like, a lot of the dating advice there was stuff like shower, or...
What? No, I like being stinky for my potential partners. They love it.
Yeah, or like women are not scary. Just talk to them, that kind of thing.
What?
But it was
as a
that
woman,
line.
I disagree.
It was just that line. That was just that. It just. I should have just tweeted that by itself. In retrospect, I feel like I wasted my time with all the other tweets in the thread. But
Women are just not scary.
Each tweet in that thread could have been its own thread and created just as big of a shitstorm.
Because that was the point, right? That's a lot of the Twitter was either telling people about cool anime, shitting on shitty anime just to, I guess vent. And then just a lot of times I'd be bored at work and the anime fandom is so easily riled up.
It's
like
a
anime
gold
Twitter.
mine.
Anime Twitter is just, oh my god.
They're the kind of people that say anime saved my life.
Oh no, I'm not even talking about that. These are people, right? That after Gamergate happened, they got a taste. They got a taste of feeling like they're cool, right? So, because what they do, like they would post a smug anime girl at a journalist, and the journalist would get all freaked out and mad. So now, like they got a little taste of like I've got the power now. Now it's me. I'm the bully today. Mm-hmm. So it's this weird. It created this weird monster that really only existed post Gamergate it was like it depressed but smug.
Yeah.
Where they would hide a significant portion of anime Twitter does this, where they hide their depression under a veneer of smugness. You see this a lot, especially like Nagatoro avatars. Like they use the smug anime girl look.
Wyatt.
Yeah.
I love
They
Wyatt.
use-
No.
They use they
Poor
use the
Wyatt.
smug anime girl as like it's like a replacement for confidence, right?
Yeah, he
feign
has
confidence.
mentioned multiple times of how depressed he was, so I can
It's like
see
no
that.
one-
I can
No one
fucking
can
see that.
recognize my clinical depression if I have a smug anime girl.
And I go
Yeah.
off on the tangent about how, like, she said sus, and then it's actually not, it was never about the sus comment ever. It was about
Well,
something
I
else.
mean, Wyatt gets a pass because that thread was that
That
was
thread
It
was,
was great.
magnificent. That was an Anime Outsiders tier shitstorm.
It's like I tip my hat to you, sir. But yeah, so when you have people like that, it's just they're so easy to rile up, especially like the soy jack of like the smug mask of he's crying on the inside. That's
Yes.
that's Anna Twitter, and it's so obvious. Like, dude, I know you're mad. Look at how big you're responding, right? If you really were smug, even if you did respond, it would be like pithy, maybe witty. It would
Something
not
funny.
be. Yeah,
Yeah.
it would not be an attempt to deconstruct or dissect what we're saying, or an attempt to put out this like a dissertation on why we're wrong, or like a veiled call to arms, like quote tweeting it, saying something like these people are whatever. Like, clearly you're mad. You're not going to fool anybody that you're in control of the situation. All I have to do to take control of your life from you is tweet that something I know you have a parasocial relationship with is garbage. If AO was still a thing today, all I would have to... It would be too easy now. Because all I would have to do, despite the fact that I enjoy VTubers, all I would have to do was shit on a VTuber. It's like, it would be even less effort today.
Yeah, and the fucking VTuber community is so fucking stupid. Like, they get into like fights with each other with the stupidest shit half the time.
Well, it depends
know?
on the community because they're so splintered. I'd say like the worst one's probably VT, like that 4chan board. That shit's like,
Oh yeah.
man, I worry for these VTuber chicks sometimes. I mean, these guys get anywhere near them, that's gonna be a news
All they
story.
do is I saw like the craziest thing on Twitter the other day. It was someone donated to Gwargur, you know, the
Yeah,
shark girl.
yeah.
And it was a dude who was fighting for his country, and he was outside of his country, and he was getting bombed, and he posted that in a super chat for like $10. He was like, "I hope to see you again, Gwargur. Hopefully nothing bad happens to me." And it was real. The real thing someone posted.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. Like, I like Gura. I get why she's big. I think she earned it, but like, man, her fan base is fucked up.
I mean, she just does wholesome like let's plays of
Yeah.
Devil May Cry, and she's actually really funny, and she's actually pretty talented. She can sing and perform and somehow deal with a lot of bullshit.
It's the refreshing thing about VTubers is it's just nice to see people succeed that fucking deserve it. It's just nice to see, especially with streamers, especially with girl streamers. It's just like, they're not like, oh look, I put the camera down my shirt. Oh,
Or we're like that what's her
Yeah.
name? Nicolo? Like
Yeah.
Nicolao? or whatever?
Yeah, it's just like, oh, finally, people, entertainers on the internet are just trying to be goddamn entertainers. There's no strings attached. There's no grifting. It's just, hey there, I want you to have a good day through my streams. Like, thank you. It's a relief. It's a refreshing experience, especially being just so cynical on the internet for so long. And it's just
Thank
like,
you, anime
finally,
girl.
finally.
They brought
Finally.
back streaming to what it should be about. And that's just
Having a
enjoying
fun time.
yourself. And
Yeah.
getting to say, Ikumbokum. Ikumbokum.
It's just, and I think a lot of it is that anime avatar. I talked about this on Nick Rakita's show, actually, when I was telling him about this stuff. The anime avatar helps in a way I don't think a lot of people expected. Because, like, man, when I first heard about virtual YouTubers, I thought it was going to be the cringiest, most embarrassing shit on earth, right?
It's only
Like-
half the time is it cringy, so you're good on that.
That's because of the English indie ones.
Oh yeah, the thoughts.
Yeah.
That's what they
Oh,
are. They're
yeah.
just a bunch of thoughts who clout chest. So
Yeah.
oops, sorry.
But like, I think even looking back, I didn't see this coming. That it forces you to be entertaining on the one hand, because you can't do, if you're a female streamer, you can't do the shortcuts, right? You can't stream from your bedroom to make it feel intimate. You can't put the camera down your shirt. None of that. The avatar can only capture so much. And if you're a guy streamer, you can't do stupid mugging or like being over the top card. Like I'm Ninja playing Fortnite. What? Come on! Whoa!
Appeal to the little kids, yeah.
Yeah, because the avatar can only capture so much, right? And you have to do it in character, because if you're not in character, you're not a VTuber. So you have to be entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And it lets a lot of shy people come out of their shell, and they tend to, be more active in that state. So they tend to, the personality traits they have shine through a little more, so you get more of a personality to the personality. So this kind of comes together to where you get more of a wellspring of entertainment. I think that's why they're taking off. I've watched VTubers now more than I watch anime, because I'm guaranteed entertain. If I watch Amelia Watson, right, just act like a fucking like little demon over some game, like an entertaining female DSP, like that's more fun than taking a gamble on some anime that's probably going to be written by shut-ins that don't really have human interaction, so all the dialogue feels stilted and the story is shit. Yeah.
Is Amelia Watson the one that was like, "Hey fam, you want to listen to me crack my toes? Crack."
It might have been her. She's the one. Watson's fucking great, because first of all, she's
just like a little weirdo, right? And
yes.
Yes. Like, she is the quintessential internet personality. And I don't mean internet. I mean, her personality is very internet.
Like, it could not adapt any other place other than the internet.
This is someone that, you believe that, this isn't a girl gamer, this is a gamer, and she's probably, I would bet money she has called people slurs outside of streams.
That.
Yeah.
Too wholesome.
She very much, like, everyone calls her the toxic gamer, and that's what makes it so fucking entertaining. Like, she's going to play this game, even if I don't care about this game, like Apex. I don't give a shit about Apex, but she plays Apex, and I know she's gonna start talking shit, and she's gonna do something funny. Mm-hmm. And so I know going into this, I could just play this stream while I draw or something. I will be entertained. That's why I think VTubers, for me especially, just I don't really watch anime much anymore. Because, like, I know if I watch this, I'll be entertained. I know for a fact. I will not regret pressing play. With a lot of anime, especially today, I don't have that guarantee. Unless it's a known thing, like the new season of JoJo that's coming soon. Like, I know if I watch JoJo Part 6, I'll be entertained. Well, partly because I've read JoJo Part 6. But even if I haven't, I've seen enough JoJo to know, oh, is that new JoJo? Good times. Like, the new season of Overlord got announced. I'm all for that. Is that new Overlord? 100%. Hell yeah. Yeah. Because I know.
Gone.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. But, like, if I watch, I don't know, some show that's got some title like Sitting on the Streams of Time or something, I don't know if that's going to be any good. Anime's so up in the air. Because, like, anime consists of the greatest television shows on Earth and the worst television shows on Earth.
Absolute
the thing
worst.
About the anime problem, and I guess this is like across entertainment as a whole, is it just gets really fucking repetitive. And it's like when you see one, you see a lot of them. Like, you know exactly the stereotypes they're going to go with. You know exactly how the story is going to end. You know exactly what's going to happen with these characters. That's the biggest problem with anime. It's very and I guess it's why we kind of even have a podcast like this, is because we're so disenfranchised as anime boomers. Like, it's not entertaining anymore to us because it's not new.
Yeah, and oftentimes you can actually see what other anime inspired that anime, because a lot of times they'll just shamelessly rip something off from another work, and it's like, oh, I know where they got this from. I know what their inspiration is, and oftentimes it leads to a predictable outcome. Yeah,
not only that, but the industry, and there's like interviews with guys at studios and like directors and animators, whatever, have talked about this, and there's been like a documentary by like some British tool that the guy was a douchebag, but the documentary's good. I can't remember what it's called, but it was basically talking about this situation in anime because of the low birth rates. They're having to appeal more and more to otaku to make these shows
Wow.
worth the investment. So what it's leading to is you're getting less just entertainment in shows and more of shit like that's why you're getting so many of these isekai of like this white bread protagonist that goes to some fantasy world where all the elves want to fuck him. It's all just wish fulfillment for shut-ins. That's what so many of these shows are, or like voyeuristic shows about a group of girls, or it's just so much of it is, or like if it's like an action show, it's like it's kind of that the problem with Fate, where it's just numbers and stats everywhere and made up terminology and like things for your autistic brain to take and categorize and absorb. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not actually using autistic in the internet pejorative in that one. I'm literally saying, and like,
It's literally
an otaku,
autism. Yeah.
an otaku who is on the spectrum is going to be like, oh yeah, is that data? I love data. And again, not knocking that. Not knocking that. If you have autism, that's a thing. But that's what they're deliberately doing.
Yeah.
So
Fate's like one of the most autistic series out there from like what I understand.
oh god, it is. It's basically there's two elements to Fate. It's do you want to fuck your history textbook? And the other thing I always described it as this one clip. I don't know if anyone wants to see the YouTube poop of this Fresh Prince, the popular the Fesh Prince. But there's one little clip from it that I always use to describe Fate. And it's just a zoom in of Will Smith over and over as he goes, numbers, 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 and numbers appear on the screen. That's Fate. It's just numbers, 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 and do you want to fuck your history textbook? Like,
I mean, there's something for everyone in Fate, so.
if you look up Fate, like the wiki, it doesn't feel like you're looking up the wiki of a story. It feels like you're looking up like a D&D rule book or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so much of it is like background lore and stats and special abilities and alternate modes and alternate abilities if they have this stat and what class they're in and how they change if they're in different classes. This doesn't feel like a story.
Today I feel like an archer, but now I'm a
literally
barbarian.
just like I mean it's based off a visual novel, so it's like a visual video game.
Well,
you know?
it's but it's a visual novel, but it's not. That kind of stuff isn't really stat based. It's like the visual novel is like
it's based on video game rules, is what it seems like, more than just actual like story rules. Is what I'm trying to explain. It's like it seems like it's more towards video gamers than like, okay, I'm here for a profound story about whatever.
Well, here's the thing, right?
You have something different that I haven't seen before.
Compare that to Overlord, right? Where things from a video game becoming real is part of this plot.
Mm-hmm.
And Overlord feels less statty and video gamey than Fate.
Yeah, because it only has to be like slightly involved with video games. It's more about the characters and how they interact with each other. Yeah. That's what a story should fucking be. It shouldn't be about who can overpower who.
Yeah. Fate has some good ideas in it, but like it's bogged down by a lot of degeneracy too. Like, I mean, there's a whole plot point of the rape worms. Like these little worms.
I mean, it's Japan, so I'm not surprised that there's rape worms.
Rape worms that get used on like a 9-year-old girl.
Oh god!
And like that's from the series. Everyone tells you, "Oh man, it's like the best Fate." I think it's like Fate. Hell, was it Fate? I don't remember. They get these goofy subnames. Either way,
it's Fate the one that keeps getting recommended to me. And then I looked that up and saw that. I was like, no, why the fuck would I watch that?
Yeah. But it's
the one that people always recommend to people. It's always that one. And they're like, oh, by the way, there's a scene that happens later on. And I'm like, wait, okay, you're stopping me to tell me that there's a scene. It's like, yeah, it has to do with these worms, but they never tell you the girl's age.
I mean, that's why, like, I don't really watch anime, except maybe, like, 1 or 2 out of a season, because that's the only ones that, like, maybe will impress me. It's just because, like, they're afraid to go different in their storytelling, and I feel like maybe that's why manga has been getting more popular, too. It's because manga isn't afraid to go more, I guess, different than what people expect from anime.
Because the anime studios, you have the overwork as being a thing, too. So, like, they And Japan has always been afraid of change and taking risks. That's just a Japanese thing. Risks are scary
That's
to that
also an
entire country.
autism thing too.
But it's just Japanese culture, man. These risks are scary. So, like, they don't want to take risks with these anime. They're more willing to take risks with manga because now manga has been, it's like more synonymous with doing different things. So it's like trying something new is the norm in manga now.
It's also like the most popular book kind of type series, if you want to call it. It's more popular than comics are nowadays too. So it's very, very profitable, especially if you have like a cult like status amongst manga people.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I just recently read Chainsaw Man, and that fucking blew my mind with how great that was. You know.
Yeah,
And it was different. It was beautiful. Like the characters are funny in it. Like it was so compelling and interesting to read.
Yeah, that's sort of where most of the good anime now is coming from. It's adaptations of a manga most of the time, or not a light novel. Those are usually trash. It's just it was a weird fluke with Overlord and Tanya, where it's like it felt like they're two light novels that have come to save the day. Like I heard this medium's trash. Here, let me fix that.
Because it's mostly Coomer posting his way.
Yeah, well, I think there's I could go into a whole thing with the light novel industry and how bad it is, and how most of these authors they're fan fiction tier to the point where their editors have to finish the book for them because they have one draft in them, right? And the editor will send it back. So, okay, fix this, and they don't. They can't. That was all they had.
It's why we'll never see the end of Haruhi Suzumiya, even though I love Haruhi Suzumiya.
That's okay. We forgive your flaws. But
I checked out after the Endless 8 and never again.
It was only supposed to be like a few chapters in the Endless 8, just to like get the point across, but not really stay there for too long. And then the anime was just like, no, we're gonna, instead of maybe like making this a movie or like an OVA, we're just gonna make this a whole fucking season and really cuck the fucking viewers. So
I can't remember when I told Nick about that. I think it was on the last podcast I was on, or not podcast, stream I was on with him. His reaction was hilarious because he took a minute to process what that meant when I told him how that went down of like 8 episodes and like the production schedule and how long you'd put up with that. And he like took a minute to you can see he takes a minute to process it, and then it like genuinely pisses him off that someone did that, and it was great.
Yeah, no, it was fucking stupid. Like I said, it could have been like an OVA or a movie or just a little something on the side so it wouldn't distract from the main season. But they were like, nah, let's just squeeze it in there and really cuck the fucking anime fan base,
What's so great about it and terrible is the fact that, when you tell somebody that they had 8 episodes where like the day kept repeating, they think in their minds, oh, so they were really fucking lazy. And they just like made the same episode with a couple of extra scenes each time. No, they had to redraw every single scene. It wasn't just like they just copied and pasted it. No, every single
their outfits
episode
were different.
Yes,
it's, like it had slight changes to it, so they obviously had to fucking redraw it.
So the animators had to redraw every single episode as if it was a completely new episode. The voice actors and actresses had to record voice lines as if it was a new episode. They didn't just reuse the lines. So even though each episode was almost entirely identical outside of a few changes here and there, everything was produced as if it was a completely new episode with an entirely different plot, but it wasn't. And I will never, ever be able to get Kyonkun Denwa out of my brain.
See, I just dipped halfway through the first season, so I didn't have to deal with that shit because I couldn't take that show.
I'm a completionist, and it is one of my greatest strengths and my worst weaknesses. Once I start something, no matter how terrible it is, I have to finish it.
See, I thank God every day I'm not that type. I will very easily go nope, and then just end it. It's look, I only have so much time.
It's not really conscious for me. I just kind of just get bored. I'm like, oh, something more entertaining, and I just do that instead.
Yeah,
I'm like, I'll pick this up later, and I don't.
I think a problem too why I don't really get into a lot of animes because the back in the day, right? You still had anime being made for otaku, for nerds, but when they made an anime for nerds, right? It was what would be cool. What would
Impress the fan base, yeah.
not even just impress, just is a bunch of nerds making shows for nerds and it's like, what would be cool, right? So you had like giant robots where the animation, this gorgeous animation would spend all this time showing every goddamn servo and piston and gear in this robot and like all of the shit being hit on the controls and like a laser would fire and like the burst of the beam coming out and then the firing and then that moment right before it hits and then the meticulously animated explosion. Like there was a love in there. Like this just felt like there were people behind the scenes going, this would be so fucking cool. Guys. Just a robot just comes out and it's like giant fucking laser gun. The laser gun's even bigger than the giant robot. And he fires the goddamn laser gun. And I mean, this is like a laser, boys. Like you can almost hear the director going like to the people, like he's trying to describe this scene and how he wants it. Like there was a clear love there. Now it feels like anime is fueled by depression. Like you have between the people being behind the scenes being overworked and that affecting the quality of it, to these shows feel like now they're being made as crutches for sad people. Like, don't be sad, lonely man. Here's a show where you could just pretend to be that boy and look at all the girls he has.
Did we not learn anything from Evangelion? Quit being sad, you pussy. Just get in the fucking
get in the robot.
It's like I feel like nowadays I watch a lot of these anime, and as a well-adjusted male with real life friends and a girlfriend, I feel like an adult watching Noggin. Like I'm past this. This is not for me. This is for people in like an earlier stage of life. I've grown past this. I've grown past. And I'm not. It's not that I've outgrown anime. It's that they're trying to appeal to either 13-year-olds or lonely men, and I am older than that and not that. So there's nothing for me anymore until the occasional overlord or something like, okay, guy, we here's something for the sad guys. Okay, here's a story. Thank you. That's all I asked for was a goddamn story.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, it's frustrating. Because I remember back in like the 2000s when it was like anime felt like a buffet, a smorgasbord.
No one even
concepts.
knew what anime was back in the day. They'd be like those Chinese cartoons. You
Well,
know?
even like during the anime boom of the 2000s, right? It was like a smorgasbord of concepts and ideas and stories. What worlds will I go to today? Take me there, anime. What's some crazy shit? Well, here's a movie about a robot bed with an old man strapped on it that goes berserk. A berserk old man bed goes on a rampage. It's called Rojin Z. Hell yeah! Tell me about the berserk old man. I've never heard of anything like that in my life. Let's go. And like that's even when anime was being more cookie cutter with like the mecha shit. It still felt like they wanted to do something. They wanted to tell a story. They wanted to make an entertainment product as opposed to some kind of either emotional crutch or something just so laser focused on a demographic. Because now it just feels like they're trying to hit demographics.
Even back in the day, mechas used to be like, I mean, they used to be mostly just political, right? Because it used to be like, okay, cool fucking robots, but we have complex characters fighting wars for, countries or whatever philosophies they have, and they might not even be emotionally prepared for that, right? Yeah. You can have the childlike state, be like, oh, cool fucking robot, and then you have the more mature like mindset of like, okay, I'm watching like a war anime. This is essentially what I'm watching, and then
a lot of Gundam, yeah,
and then yeah, and like a lot of it's just like cool anime robots, but also look at the lowly waifus mostly too, and then
yeah, and that's another thing. You didn't really have a lot of this lowly shit back in the day. That kind of blew up and became a problem because Japan is the land of the demographic. They will market to a demographic that like other parts of the world think like, man, you don't market to them. Japan's like, but they have money. That's why they have used panty vending machines. Like, hey, pervert, and you know what? I don't even blame them. I'm not even shitting like Japan. No, it's kind of brilliant because like, hey, perverts have money. Like,
I mean, sociopaths do have money, so
like,
that.
Hey, who spends? It's like Japan sort of realized what a lot of Western Rule 34 artists realize with furries, right? These motherfuckers got money coming out the ass.
And they're
terrible.
Terrible about managing it.
Yeah. But like they realize that. And at some point they realize, wait, you can just draw the little girl, so it's not CP. It's not bad, technically. But it appeals to the pedophiles. Pedophiles have money. Huh. Like they found the loophole. They found the legal loophole. It's like the business owner. They're like, hey, if I put my finances in this country, I don't have to pay taxes. You know, it's that thing. It's like, if I just draw the girl, but then show her ass, it's not illegal, but they still like it. And then they realize that, and that's when the lowly option hit every goddamn anime. And now that's something we have to live with.
And we have to deal with the spurgs that are obsessed with that shit and will defend it to the death.
Yes. Good God, yes. And like, I'm in such agreement with what you said. You took the wind out of my sails.
I don't really care about the lowly thing, but I mean, like my whole thing, controversial but brave. I think it's a drawing, and if you have to censor drawings, that's a whole other discussion right there. And you could be questionable about it, and then you could say something like, "That's fucking gross and degenerate, Digibro. It's not something really to be proud of."
Yeah.
Like I don't think before, it's that big of a deal. But hold on, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But when I made a tweet about it, asking, "Do people really care that much about this?" It blew up, and I wasn't expecting it to. And it's people like, I think what Nicholas Diorio said was like, I think people in Discord groups literally just they obsess over lowly, and they just just want an excuse to attack people that say anything about it or praise people, which is very strange. I will say.
Well, here's the thing. We at AO have been some of the most anti-lowly people. That's one of the things that we would often get some reactions on Twitter over.
Yeah.
But I've said before, my stance is simple, and I think it's the stance to go with. I think if you're a little too much or too lenient on this stance, then I would recommend you rethink. It shouldn't be censored. It shouldn't be illegal. It is a drawing. You shouldn't be arrested for having it, but you should be judged for having it.
No, absolutely. That's kind of been my sentiment the whole fucking time. Is like, oh, you like prepubescent looking girls? It's kind of. Well, it's even like with Shota too. No one ever brings up Shota, which I'm very fucking strange about.
Well, because a lot of it is straight Shota. Straight Shota is also weird, but less weird. And it's less weird because they don't want to fuck the kid. They want to be the kid.
I don't know, man. That's still pretty kind of weird to me, bro.
It's weird.
It's not weird.
It's very weird. It's very weird. It's very fucking weird.
Oh, it's more focusing on the mommy milkers instead of the child. You know, it's like okay.
But it's like it's in the grand scheme of things between like age play and wanting to fuck a kid. Age play is clearly the lesser of two evils here, and that's what. Unless you know a girl that's into straight Shota, then that's a red flag.
I don't know. I kind of like they're both kind of weird, but people never bring up Shota because they're like, oh, but they're straight Shota. I'm like, oh, but still, like, I don't know.
If it's just Shota, yeah, that's as bad as lowly, like Con. It's the one avenue where it's like it's slightly less weird. It's brought down from a 10 to a 9 is straight Shota because okay, you don't want to bang the child. You want to be the child. That's weird, but you don't want to bang the child.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is it's the Fujoshis, and the Fujoshis are the ones that fight the lolicon dudes. So, normally they don't.
I don't get it. Like, you guys want to see 15-year-old boys caress each other's nipples and suck each other's dicks. So it's like, you guys are not like any better.
Well, it's like Noralities, right? Noralities did that whole video about this very topic, but then she gets found to have like My Hero Academia /fiction in her Tumblr profile.
Yeah.
It's like the Fujoshis do this shit.
I think a lot of the Fujoshis, though, what they gravitate toward is less young than the lowly guys. Because you're the lowly guys, right? And the shit they're into. And those girls look 8, 7, 6. The Fujoshis...
They're obsessed with people that could pass as adults. That's their whole thing. Well, they're like, this technically 16. And it's like, okay, she's got big titties and she's like got birthing hits. Sorry. My bunga brain goes off. Sorry, I don't see her for her age. It's a drawing.
That's the thing, too. I think some of that is projecting, like, self-hate for that.
100%. 100%. Like, it's like, I see attractive femoid and I feel nothing but rage. And then they're like, oh, but I'm a lesbian, bisexual, whatever. And it's like, why don't you understand where a male's perspective then would be like, okay, attractive femoid. I like seeing attractive femoid. But
Yeah.
no, it's like they hate what males are sexually attracted to specifically, and it's very strange to me. As a bisexual person, I don't know. I bring that up whenever it's necessary.
But I think it's
very
something
fucking
different.
weird to me.
I think this is. I'm referring to something different when I say like that one chick, right, that got caught with all the My Hero Academia stuff. I think
Noralities.
that's like some kind of deep down, like they know that sort of I don't know what you call catch or but they're technically this age, and there's like a self-loathing there that they then project onto other people.
It's very high school.
It's like they're trying to fight themselves, but they can't fight themselves because of the ego protecting themselves. So they fight themselves by way of other people.
Well, it's like they don't. It's like you can't even make fun of them for like the cartoon. For I say they can't say shit about the cartoon's body type because they're like, okay, well, actual women can possibly look like that. So we're gonna say, well, it's technically a cartoon, and you're attracted to a cartoon that's technically 16, could pass as 18, 19 if it wanted to. It doesn't fucking matter. So I'm gonna project my insecurities onto this cartoon instead of an actual woman.
Yeah.
Well, it's like how
that's
we were
problematic.
talking about the line between when all anime characters were basically drawn as adults, like no matter their age, as long as they were a teenager, they were drawn to look like an adult. And then we crossed that Rubicon where it became every single anime character is drawn as a loli regardless of their age. Like there was some like fucking gap where that one guy just came up with this idea to just draw characters looking like kids, and then it just fucking took off.
Yeah. It's you can't really close that door once it's open, and now we just have to deal with that. At least you have some more self-aware media that plays with that a little more. Like the two light novels I mentioned, you have Tanya, which is it's an adult male in a little girl's body, which when I heard about that, I thought this show was going to be the most degenerate thing in the world until I heard why that's the case. And that it's not a sexual thing at all. It is literally a punishment from God and an attempt to put this guy through hell so that he will believe in God. Like it is,
very
and it
based
is
and very red pill, I will say.
It is treated as such through the whole show. It never winks about, to the point where in the anime, the author of the books had Tanya's design change specifically because he didn't want people to waifu her or lowly waifu her, because that is not the point of the show. You're supposed to see, like, this is fucking, like, almost scary. Like, this is a sociopathic male in the body of a cherubic little girl that does awful, awful things because she's in a pissing contest with God, and in this universe, God is a petty asshole. It's not supposed to be any lowly fan service there. There's no lowly appeal at all, to the point where calling Tanya a lowly makes you fucked up. Like, because that plays with that whole, like, oh, the lowly is really this years old, whatever. Or you have something like Overlord, where each of the Nazarick NPCs are supposed to be representative of the kind of nerd that made them, while they are oblivious to the tropes that they are, because now they're real. So each character, like, you can see the person in them. So Shaltir is specifically like, this is a like, it specifically points out that the player that made Shaltir is a degenerate. And she's like emblematic of the degenerate kind of character someone like that would make.
Young,
and
petite, stuffs her bra.
Yeah, sex obsessed, weirdly kinky. The whole side chapter that one manga about rape master Shaltir, like that,
which was omitted, of course, from the anime.
Well, no, wasn't that like an alternate ending?
Oh, maybe it was an alternate ending.
I think it was an alternate ending to the one with the adventurers, where instead of killing, what was her name, the wizard girl in that group.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Because they just actually the last anime series actually handled that arc.
Yeah, and instead of killing her, Shaltir kept her as a sex slave and like
Ugh.
adopted the title Rape Master Shaltir and stuff like because like that Shaltir is made by a degenerate and has all of her creators' degeneracy in her. So we have a story here that is, rather than doing this to appeal to this, it is playing on the existence of this for the purpose of telling a story and making a character. So you do have something like that comes around, but a lot of the time you get something like Dance in the Vampire Bund, where it's like, if you watch this show, you should probably not live near a school.
I don't even know what that is, but I'm gonna assume it's some lowly shit.
Oh, it's one of the worst.
Dance
Oh my
in the
God.
Vampire
I'm not typing that into Google.
Dance in the Vampire Bund. Let me try to give the most succinct and YouTube friendly description I could possibly give. It's supposed to be this political thriller about vampires living with humans and like them desire to create a vampire country or whatever. But see, the leader of the vampires is a queen that takes the form of a 8-year-old girl.
I see.
No.
No, the in-universe excuse is that she does it because if she is an adult, she will have to be married off or whatever. But if she takes the form of a child, she won't. But there's like, dude, the sexualization.
But they want to
of
fuck
this
her,
character.
right? That's what you're trying to say.
if you ever want to feel like you belong on the list, watch the anime opening. There's also a scene. There's also a scene where they have to check her to make sure, because they give her periodic checks to make sure she's still a virgin, and they show the device she'll be strapped to for the check. And that's not even the worst of the shit that's in that manga.
That sounds a lot like kink shit, I will say.
Oh my God, it is. Again, if you ever want to feel like you belong on a list, watch the anime opening. You don't even have to watch the anime, just the opening. Just find it on YouTube.
So what you're saying is this is obviously not very pro lowly podcast, but if someone was really into lowly, you could listen to this podcast for recommendations for degeneracy. Oh fuck!
Now you make me feel like I'm trying to warn people, but now you're making me think maybe I should stop.
I'm just saying, coomers are gonna coom, so we'll find something. I don't know, man.
You can't stop
porn
the
addiction
fucking
is real.
coomers. They'll find their degenerate shit somehow.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Can I just say though, I am this whole wave of like coomer, not the people, but people being like this term being used and being aware of this, and I'm so fucking happy because for the earliest days of AO, it felt like us versus the world on this fucking porn addiction and this degeneracy that exists in the fucking fandom. And just seeing that now, it felt like if you said anything negative about internet pornography or being addicted to it, you were some kind of prude. And finally, now that people are going, hey, this is actually fucked up, and these people are weird. God damn, does it warm my heart? Like, oh my God, fucking finally. We weren't taking crazy pills. Oh, it's beautiful. It's like stepping out and finding out like you're living in this horrible life, and you find out like you walk outside the dome and like it was all fake. The world's actually beautiful. Oh, thank God.
Like that one film. What's his name?
Truman Show.
The Truman Show. Yes, the anime Truman Show is what you're saying.
Like, oh God, yeah, it wasn't just us. Everybody else realizes it too. Thank God, the world's not crazy. Say, oh yeah, but porn addiction's kind of real. These people are fucking psychos, and this is kind of messed up. Because I mean, we realized a little too late. I mean, we have to be real here. We've talked about sort of how anime has, I guess, gone down the shitter in a lot of ways. The fandom kind of has too, because it's just something we're gonna have to admit. Sort of like the alcoholic has to admit they have a problem. The anime fandom's become furries too. It's just the other.
In a lot of ways, yeah, but also like furries are still kind of like their own form of autism too. It's just like it's very specific too to them.
I say this as someone I have been following internet lolcowdom, I guess, since I was like a teenager, like back in the 2000s, the earliest days of the internet. Like I was fucking there. I have seen all of these fucking groups come along and go through this evolution. I remember the early days of the furries. They were my favorite fucking They were my favorite soap opera, basically, as a teenager. Every day I hop on the internet. What were these people up to? Are there any news from the furries? Even if they didn't do something new, did something new come out that happened a while ago?
Some new drama, some beef, some crazy shit. Somebody drew something crazily degenerate, and everyone hates them now.
He must have been ecstatic whenever Frederick Knudsen did that down the rabbit hole in furries. Then
I was a little disappointed because he skipped over so much good shit. He didn't even bring up the quote unquote hostage situation. He didn't bring up the Minerva Mink wedding. Those are two of my favorite stories.
Minerva Mink, I remember that too.
Yeah. It's two of my favorite stories, and he didn't bring those up. Like, oh, especially the hot. You would have thought if we're talking about like the fucked up nature of the fandom, right, or the darker day. At least the it's weird to call it a hostage situation. It's kind of what it was, but it's the most autistic kind of hostage situation. Basically, for those who don't know, a couple guys from Something Awful made their way into a furry convention to sort of be like a David Attenborough, like here are the furries. Here's what they're doing. We're gonna go back to the SA forums and tell everybody what we saw. And I guess one of them decided to be an idiot and drew the Something Awful logo on a piece of paper that said, "We're watching," and leave it in the bathroom. And they got spotted or figured out, or I don't know, because they didn't give that information on how they got figured out. But then they're in their car getting ready to leave, and a fucking cadre of furries, like not even in fursuits, just imagine, right? You're in your car, you're getting ready to leave a convention. You're like in the parking lot, kind of by the back door, and all of a sudden, pouring out of this back door is just every nerd stereotype that has ever existed in the 90s. Just pours like a faucet out of this back door and surrounds your car. They give them a form. They tell them they know what they did, and they make them sign a form. They won't let them leave. They basically hold these people hostage. They're sitting on their car. They're surrounding the car. They won't let them
imagine
leave.
the smell.
Yeah, they won't let them leave until they sign a fucking document saying that they won't make fun of them on the internet.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's just asking for someone to make fun of you on the internet.
Yeah. It might be a little hard. It might be a little hard to find. I think you have to use like archive, like Wayback Machine links, but it was on, I think, Crush Shift Destroy. Had the wrote about that. I think on Crush Shift Destroy. Wrote about that. If you want to read up on it, it's very funny. So there's like stuff like that. So I've seen that. I saw the rise of the bronies and then how they basically like grew from the cancer of the furry fandom. And for a while, the furries were all right because all their worst ones became bronies, but then they went right back to being furries when My Little Pony ended. So it's like I've seen this rise and fall and the cycles and everything. And then I realized one day, and it's something that I talk about a lot because I feel like we need to recognize this. The anime fandom has gone through the same shit. They've even adopted stuff the furries would do, like con orgies. Orgies were a furry con thing.
My buddy Necro13, you may know who he is. You know,
I know him. Yeah.
He has like folder. Well, not like a huge folder, but he showed me like photos because he took pictures of people like just fucking relentlessly with no apology at fucking anime cons. Like he's got one where a bitch is on her knees in the bathroom, like people with their fucking windows open, and like it was inside of a hotel that was, like sometimes hotels they'll have I don't know like they'll be in a circle and you can see another hotel like across the room from yours.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But either way, their blinds were open, just like, and they were just fucking, like, just straight up. So, like, I mean, yeah, the degeneracy definitely happens unapologetically.
Yeah,
cons.
That was a furry thing at furry cons. Was the con orgy, and then the anime cons started doing it. You even have the cutesy name for sex, cutesy name for sexual stuff. They can't name things; they have to give it a fandom nickname. Is it a loli and a shota, or is it a cub? That kind of thing. They have to make their own names. The important presence of porn within the community and the even the artist alley has to have the 18+ section and the inability to remove the adult material from the presence of cons and fandom and stuff like that. Like you look at all these anime fans and their reverence for hentai. And you ask yourself, how are you any fucking better than the furries? And you can't even say, well, we don't fuck dogs, because you know what? To an extent, you're right. I say,
there are a lot of chicks that really, really, really are into Inuyasha. So,
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I said if the fandoms are like it's like a role playing character sheet of degeneracy and like how many points did you put in this? The anime fandom instead of it put less points into bestiality and more points into kids because like even the furries like man those cub art people are ugh. Meanwhile you have the anime fandom like did you look loli is not pedophilia, okay? Do not ban me from my loli posting, like that kind of thing. And it's not even completely without the dog fucking because do you remember the Subverse thing with Tim Pool?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Tim Pool
I
named
don't know.
his
What is
website
that?
Subverse, and there was apparently a porn game called Subverse, and the two were beefing with each other over the name.
Yeah. Do you know who makes the porn game?
I do
No.
not know.
It's a group called Studio FOW, FOW, I think. What Studio FOW is most known for, and why they have a big following, because you remember when this Tim Pool thing happened, you had a whole bunch of weebs and 4chaners that came to the game's defense, and to the defense of Studio FOW. What they've been most known for is they make, I think either Source Filmmaker or Blender, bestiality porn.
Oh.
Yeah, like girls getting banged by dogs. So that's and again this the Coomer shit and the prevalence of it, and just there's so many behavioral things. And then there's one thing, you know what? In this respect, the anime fandom is way worse than the furries. The anime fandom has a worrying number of murderers and death cults.
That is true, actually.
You
Mr.
make a very
Anime.
compelling argument.
Yeah. It's like, again, this is something we have to recognize, and we can choose to either fix it or just, well, I guess we can't talk shit to the furries. At least no one named Mr. Furry murdered his parents because his parents made him clean his fucking room or whatever it was. Like, there are not
There's
one.
also the worshipping of like Nevada Tan and the chick that stabbed that one guy because she loved him too much or whatever. That was like the picture of her
mommy
smoking.
stabbed me.
Yeah, and then there's not one but two death cults in Japan that use anime for recruiting and integrate anime into their thing. One of them being the infamous Om Shinrikyo.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with Om Shinrikyo?
Dankula did a movie or a video.
He might have. I'm not familiar with all of Dankula's videos, but
That's the crazy cult that made the crazy animes like Garzy's Wing, right?
No, Garzy's Wing was not. That was by the guy that made Gundam.
Okay.
No,
Is he in a cult? Or is he just did it because money?
Garzy's Wing was just he tried to do something new, and it was an abject failure. I forget the name of it. We actually have a review on the AO website of one of the movies by this cult. You're thinking of Happy Science. Happy Science is a break-off.
Happy Science.
Happy Science is a break-off from Om Shinrikyo. It's made by a former, I don't know what position he had in Om Shinrikyo, but he left Om Shinrikyo. When Om Shinrikyo was being destroyed by the Japanese police, he left and formed his own group, Happy Science, which is like Om Shinrikyo without the murder. Because for those who don't know, Om Shinrikyo was responsible for the biggest, like it's Japan's 9/11, basically, the biggest terrorist attack. And then they found out this cult had infiltrated all levels of the Japanese government and law enforcement. Like there were politicians and people high up in like the police and shit that were members of Om Shinrikyo. Like it was like something out of an anime. And they would often use anime in their recruitment and brainwashing. They would even take like pre-existing shows, I think like Gundam or something, and would replace like narration in the show with like narration from like I think the cult's leader or a high member or something like that. And it would like try to use these shows to tie like Gundam or Gundam's the only one I know, but I know there were other shows to recruit people and like say like Gundam teaches us this and that this is a universal truth because Om Shinrikyo, brainwashing shit. And then Happy Science just goes and makes their own anime about their teachings and worldview and beliefs and shit. And then you have the otaku murderers in Japan, including the like more than one otaku that has abducted young girls and raped and murdered them. So what I'm saying is, anime fans both here and abroad have a murder problem we should probably address.
Let's bring up the murder question of anime.
We kind of got a bit of an issue here, and like there's that what was it? Cold Steel Cruise was a big weeb. So glass houses. I'm not. I'm not defending the furries. I love making fun of the furries. But I if I'm gonna make fun of the furries, I'd like to make fun of the furries from a position of
Also making fun of anime too.
yeah, that and like if you don't address this, anytime you try to make fun of the furries and you're into anime, they're always going to be able to just clap back. Yeah, well, you're a weeb.
Well, they say like the weebs and the furries are just doomed to hate each other for the rest of our lives, right?
Which is funny because they come from the same groups in the old convention days.
Yeah, it's true. Like a furry is like one of the first people that introduced anime to like the West.
Yeah. They're essentially sibling fandoms, which is funny that they went down the same road. But I think honestly too, looking back on it, I think I kind of realized from following this shit as long as I have, fandoms are all the fucking same. I think furries was just the first to become this weird, so they became the most known for it.
Well, they kind of splintered off from the like comic book sci-fi fandom, which is really where a lot of these tropes originated from.
Yeah,
they were just like the more degenerate sci-fi fans went into like the furry shit.
Well, here's the thing:
their own sub-community.
It wasn't even that. Actually, it's kind of crazy to think about this. If you look back, a lot of the furries shit can be traced back to one man. A guy named Mark Merlino was a big figure. He's brought up in the Down the Rabbit Hole video, but it doesn't really go into kind of the issues with this guy.
Oh, the guy that basically built his own like furry sex cult or what compound?
Whatever. Well, he was like the guy in charge of the earliest furry cons and shit, and like the earliest furry, they were called mucks. And if you watch the Down the Rabbit Hole video, it explains what a muck is. He was the guy. This guy basically ran the furry fandom in the old days. And I remember when I used to follow the furry fandom back in the old days and what their goings on was, this guy's name was always popping up, Mark Merlino. And this dude essentially shaped the furry fandom into what it is today. Even back like when the conventions were first starting, and he would advertise, you'd think, right? You're doing like a convention for anthropomorphic art, like a type of cartooning, a type of comic. So you would advertise on cartoon board, like not really board. I don't even think they had boards back then. It was like IRC chats and shit like that.
IRC chats, like, Usenet.
Yeah. So like cartoon places or comic places, you know what I mean? Nah, that ain't what Mark Merlino did. He advertised on alternative lifestyle places. I'm like,
oh god.
Yeah. So like, hey, now he would just start like the gay Usenet group.
And is that why so many furries are gay?
Probably, yeah. And then like he would go to the gay, like, and then the bisexual, and then like the alternative fetishes, like the what's the 4chan board for that? Like slash something, I forget what it's for, but the equivalent of that. I forget what the 4chan letter is for that, for the like the weird board, but the equivalent to that back. I don't know, not B, but like B is just bullet.
D as in dog, D.
Oh, D, yeah, might be. I can't remember the letter, but like it was the equivalent of that back in the day, and that's where he advertised. And it's brought up. If you watch the Down Rabbit Hole video, it's brought up in passing in that letter that one guy says when he's yelling at Merlino for like what happened at the Schoon Furry convention, and. Like, yeah, I get that even in the earliest days of the furry fandom, like, the adult stuff was a thing. But it was more like bawdy humor. It was like Fritz the Cat, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Fritz
the Cat's kind of furry, but you know what? Fritz the Cat's not really furry. He's just got adopted by the furry. It's just not furry May, you know what I mean?
It's not meant to be like a furry cum thing. It's more supposed to represent, like, general college students and what they were feeling back in the day of the 60s.
It's bawdy sexual humor with anthropomorphic characters.
Because it was like supposed to be funny, more of a comedy than like a Coomer thing.
Well, you could also get away with a lot more with the anthropomorphic characters versus like depicting real people because of the standards of the time.
Exactly. So the early sexuality of the furry fandom was more like along of that because it was a lot of old just cartoonists and people that are just into cartoons and stuff and comics. And it was Merlino, as he grew the fandom, that started reaching out to essentially either people in alternative lifestyles or society's rejects to build the fandom. And the reason a lot of the furry fandom is hyper left-wing is actually tied to a lot of the same reason that a lot of the anime fandom has so much of a right-wing presence. And it's more of a self-preservation of their porn. Because they're adopting the And I'm not saying like there's no such thing as a real right-wing weeb. No. But you see a lot of this where they adopt the position opposite of their censors. They adopt this position as self-preservation for their media and their porn. Because in the early days of the furry fandom, what was it? It was the religious right. That was like, we have to censor the internet. And we have to censor, and even as the censorious left was growing, this religious right was still such a presence. That even when Bill Clinton was signing bills like this, it was still just so much just viewed as a Republican thing. So the furries adopted left-wing politics as a self-preservation mechanism for their degeneracy, for lack of a better word. And it happened a lot with the anime fandom as the social justice left came in. The censorious left came in. And, with Gamergate sort of making the nerd culture aware of that with the Anita Sarkeesians and everything. And then that spilling over to what anime is dealing with now with like the dub and sub scene and like the Crunchyroll and Funimation type stuff. So it's like adopting the political opposite of your censors. So that's where sort of why we're at where we're at today with all these leftist degenerate furries. Is you had a lot of, and it's not all him, but a lot of it is because Mark Merlino did that back in the day. And it's interesting because the anime fandom didn't have that one guy and that like the hand of one guy doing all that. And it ended up in like almost the same, like virtually the same place as the furry fandom did. And that's always fascinated the shit out of me as someone that's followed fandoms and weird fandoms and weird internet shit for like, not even my entire adult life, like in my teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
And like just watching that happened the way it did with two completely different, aside from coming from the same early groups, having two completely different origin stories and ending up in the same place. It's like, it's kind of like almost like JoJo. It's like what Araki sort of explored with part 7, where he took Jonathan and Dio and like the new universe versions of them and put them in different places, and like how much of them would be different and how much would be the same. How much is nature? How much is nurture? Yeah. And it's like they ended up as different people, but in the end, Jonathan was still the good guy. Dio was still the bad guy. They were just different about it.
Yeah,
and it's
had a different path to get to the same exact destination.
Yes. And it's interesting that the furries and the weebs did that, because as much as we hate each other, we're essentially siblings. That's kind of why I got over my bullshit and just went ahead and made Cloud Scratcher. Because I sort of had that revelation. It's like, ain't nobody any better than the other ones. Just make the damn comic.
Just draw the damn comic, Cody.
I wasn't expecting a little history lesson, but I feel like that's probably a good way to start off this podcast, as a history lesson. I mean, to explain where we're all coming from as like mid 20 plus year old weeps. So just like have watched our fandom kind of just eat each other. And like, there's still a lot of good things about the anime fandom, Yeah. Obviously, we still like anime and we like going to conventions and stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I think I think you got to kind of recognize what's going on. Like you can't sweep under the rug. You can't pretend it exist. You gotta acknowledge. Like if you're an alcoholic, you gotta acknowledge you have a problem, and then it's up to you to decide whether you want to fix that. Like if it were up to me, I don't even think I would get rid of the presence of adult stuff.
Not like you could if you wanted to,
but I wouldn't like a full censor or anything. But I would at least maybe encourage the fandom to kind of look at where you're going, because like I'm gonna tell you right now, as a guy. That I grew up a loner as a kid, and then I sort of had that. It's like I'm not going to get a whole long backstory, but I had a sort of epiphany one day. I got an epiphany one day, and then just got over my shit. Started being more sociable. Started standing up for myself. Stopped being a fucking shut-in that just watched nerd shit, and my life completely changed. I went from like the loner getting picked on every day to the most popular kid at school, or one of the most popular kids at school, like fucking that. And it really did teach me, and it's kind of why I'm frustrated with a lot of the fandom, because it taught me that a lot of this shit, when I see these people miserable on Twitter and depressed all the time, so much of it is your own making. So much of the problem with the fandom is the fandom's own making. And you all could, if you just like...
touched grass.
Yeah, just fucking grasp. Or like, try talking to people. right? Like you're using this shit as a crutch. This problem that the medium faces is like almost like a serpent eating its own tail, because it's a problem that the fans face, that create a problem with the industry, that create a problem with the fan, where like you're using these crutches, these shows that are like, oh, put yourself in the milquetoast protagonist's place where he's getting all these bitches. You're like, you're too afraid to go talk to a woman, so you put yourself in this world because the 2D women are safe, the women can't hurt you. There's even all these memes of like, the worst she can say is no, with the bus crashing.
And then she says, ew.
Like, don't give her, that's the thing, you could just not give her a reason to say ew, right?
Well,
If you
also,
could just work on yourself, improve yourself, you won't be amazed at just how much things change for you. And you, instead of just using these crutch shows that are fucking this medium up, because the rest of us just want to watch a goddamn TV show, and we got to wade through your emotional baggage to get there.
well, it's also like women can smell desperation from a mile away. Women prefer it, even if we weren't like sexually attracted to you, right? We prefer it if you act like you don't need us, because that shows that you're fucking mature and you've got your shit together, where you don't desperately need a crumb, a woman's attention. You don't need you're not in desperate need for like love and affection to where you're like having your life fall apart. Does that make any sense? You know what I'm trying to say?
The most important thing for a guy talking to a woman is to talk about like the things that you do, the things that you're interested in, without coming across as like, oh my god, she's so attractive, oh my god. Like it's just like really, really simple things. Just talking about, it's like, oh yeah, I have this hobby. I like to, like collect this or that, like, and make sure like not to be like, oh yeah, I like to collect anime figurines, just say, oh, yeah,
and come on them.
Yeah. you get a jar and you put the anime figure in there. No, like you cleverly like word it in certain ways so it's not as weird.
I feel like women do like some of the same shit too, where they're like, I expect men to come up to me and talk to me, and I'm like, have you tried talking to men that you think are cute? Ooh woo. They're like, no. Why would I do that?
I mean, it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I feel like, I mean, I don't think the Anime Boomer podcast is a good podcast to get into like why, the thought of dating nowadays would be fucking awful. But it's also like, I don't know, I've never been like that. If I was interested in someone, I just go up and start talking to them. And if I thought he was like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 cutie, it's like, I don't know, I'm not that. It's like rejection sucks. It can sting the ego a bit from time to time, but then you move on to someone else because there's other cuter people to talk to.
You need to have your ego stung, because you need to learn, like, it's okay. So, you have your wings clipped a little bit. It's okay to get
rejected, uwu. Something you should have been taught when you were a fucking child.
Yeah. Well, I think, too, a lot of the problem is because a lot of these people are so lonely and they see an option, especially if they find a girl that, like, shares their hobbies, they put so much, and I can only speak to the guy's perspective, I can't speak to the women's perspective, but they put so much stock in this woman, right? She's got to be the one. They're already fantasizing a future where they're married. So if this rejection happens, the plans are ruined. Everything falls apart. So that increases the fear, increases the nervousness, makes it worse. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people realize, see, for one thing, the 2D greater than 3D, no, it's not. As much as you want to use cartoon girls as a crutch,
it's a LARP.
It's never going to be the same, no matter what inventive new sex toys and girlfriend pillows, whatever Japan invents. It's never going to be the same.
Dakimakura.
Yeah, it's putting your Dakimakura in the dryer to make it warm is never going to be a substitute for an actual human body.
Well, I mean, you brought up like the degeneracy at cons too. You guys saw the infamous photo of or video from fucking AX 2 years ago of some dude just dry humping a plastic figure in the middle in front of like a whole crowd of people unapologetically, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess it was funny at the time, but like they specifically make that like that. They paid a lot of money to bring that and advertise to fucking weebs for a reason,
Yeah, it's and that's the frustrating thing. Like, there's no really
wait, are furries bigger sex havers than weebs?
Yeah,
bro.
Yeah.
God damn it!
I could say that with confidence because I remember following the early days of the furry fandom, and you'd hear so many stories of like sex parties, people hooking up. There were issues with like people hooking up, and then it turned out the person they hooked up with was underage, but like hookups, you would constantly hear about hookups. You would constantly hear about these sex parties. It was just, and yeah, you don't really hear about that from the anime fandom. You don't hear about these hookup. You hear about the con orgies, but a lot of this is like the con orgy feels like this is all like almost a quid pro quo deal between lonely people. You know what I mean? Like I can't get any, you can't get any, we can't get any, so let's get some from each other.
Mm-hmm.
No one
Like,
cared
that's-
who they were till they put on the mask.
Yeah, like that's kind of what the con orgy is. I've always said part of me wants would. It's one of those things like you want to see it, but you know you shouldn't. It's like a forbidden Lovecraftian knowledge. Like part of me like the gawking at the internet part wants to see what goes on at a con orgy, but then the common sense to me is like you know what goes on in a con orgy, and you know you don't want to see that. You know you don't want to see a mass
You don't
of
wanna see
sad
it, you don't
people
wanna smell it.
grinding. Yeah,
But you're curious.
yeah,
Like a
it's
train,
like
like you want to watch the train wreck because you're curious what would happen.
Yeah, it's like the way the internet's kind of ruined me. Like I'll hear like
The
some
internet
awful,
ruined a whole generation. It weeps.
yeah, like they're like you'll hear some awful story, and my first thought a lot of time is there like a live leak video? Is there a video of it? Like no, don't watch that video. You know what happened. There's a description of what happened. Do you want to see that? But it's like there's a forbidden knowledge that like. Yeah, but like I want all the knowledge. You know, I want all the information. I want to be
Morbid
computer man.
curiosity.
Yeah. So it's like
It's like, what,
that
you mean
kind of
there's a
thing
guy?
is there
There's
too.
a video of a guy getting sucked into a like a machine. You know, I really shouldn't watch this because it's going to be horrible. But I really want to see what happens.
Yeah, that's how I knew the Zeus Sadist thing was fucked up. It was the only time I never thought that. It's the only time that the videos didn't work. I'm like, thank God. I don't even want to see a
Yeah,
thumbnail.
no. God's awful.
Yeah, but like that's the I think just the fandom needs it needs help, and I don't think the frustrating thing. I don't think it wants help. It's like watching a drug addict that you're like, I'm gonna get you like put you in rehab and all this stuff, and he'll just he's just gonna you put him through rehab. First day's out, he's gonna go right back and just start smoking that crack.
So what you're saying is it's not turning the trash because there's more normies, It's turning into trash because Coomers are afraid to go out and touch ground and get a crumb of pussy. That's what you're saying.
Because here's the thing: the normies aren't the problem, right? You think about the normies being the problem. You think about like, oh, the we got to gatekeep more, and yeah, that exists to an extent. But you got to remember that that 2000s anime boom, and how many normies started watching anime from that. Did we have this problem then? No, we did not.
No.
So clearly,
and most normies that watch anime, like they casually do it because it's on Netflix or something too. So most of the time, they just mind their own business and watch anime, and then talk to you about it because they can smell the weeb off of you.
Exactly. Like you have like when Bill Burr watched One Punch Man, that's normies watching anime.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's normies watching anime is not the problem. The problem with the political thing, the problem is more of an interior thing, like people that got their claws in positions of power and then bought into the cult.
And then shit on, anime profile pics on Twitter just to piss them off, and they're adding sus. You acting sus, senpai.
Yeah. That's a whole nother issue, a whole nother discussion. And that's the frustrating thing too, because like, see, I generally prefer watching dubs, and I prefer watching dubs because I would rather watch something in my own language. And a lot of people say like subs is like you're getting the real creators experience, but you're not, because when these directors and animators did all this shit, they did not do this shit with the intention of your focus being on the bottom of the screen the entire time. So I would A, rather have something in my own language, and B, be able to focus on the image at all times, like fully focus on the image at all times. And there was a period where dubs were great. It was a magical time in like the 2000s, early 2010s. Where like dubbing became a serious practice. They started hiring actual actors. They put effort into the localization. People that sort of are coming into anime late, and this kind of later paradigm, may be just amazed to think that, like, there was a time when Funimation was a sign of quality.
Oh yeah,
The
Absolutely.
Tsunami era.
That's why it was a big deal whenever One Piece got signed off to like Funimation to get redubbed. People were like, "Oh shit! Oh yeah, man!
Yeah.
This is gonna be like
'Cause
more true to form than what the original
Yes.
dub was supposed to be."
Because everybody
There
had
was-
horrible memories of the 4Kids dub and all the shit they did to it. So once One Piece got signed with Funi, they were like, "Oh my god, we're actually going to get a true to life One Piece adaptation."
I will say, I think the 4Kids redub of, the first season of Yu-Gi-Oh actually made it way funnier. So
Yes,
that
it
is
did.
my controversial but brave
No,
opinion.
you're right. You're 100% right, and I will fight anybody that says otherwise.
Yeah, but it's frustrating because man, I used to shill for Funimation. I used to shill because
did
there was
too.
a time. There was a time when man, that was the company you wanted to get your favorite show, because what they would do with their localization back then is they would take a lot of script liberties in service of the show, because what they would essentially do was they broke down the barrier of this being from another country. The Funimation dub scripts used to feel like the natural script. It feels like this is what the characters would say. It didn't feel like it was translated from another language. Even their advertisement didn't feel like it was made for anime fans. It felt like it was made for everybody. It took these shows and it distilled them to why you would watch them. Because before, anime ads would just show clips of the show that look cool, maybe a song from the show and a couple audio things and the logo, right? Funimation ads felt like it's actually selling you the show. Funimation was making anime.
They said shit and damn in their fucking anime.
Yeah, Funimation made anime feel less alien, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be incredible, and watching what they are now drives me up a fucking wall. Because it used to be that people would get mad at them for the liberties they took with the script, but they were taking good liberties. So it was shut up, nerd. Yeah, he didn't originally say that. Yeah, but what they changed it to fits in character, fits with the situation, makes it feel natural in English. It was a good idea to change that line. Now,
the infamous Gunsmith Cats line about the ATF.
Yeah, I vaguely yeah, and even stuff it wasn't a Funimation dub, Cyber City 808. Why would you ever watch that in Japanese? Why? Unless you're a gigantic weeb, you would never watch that in Japanese.
And Stalking's pretty good in English too. You don't think so?
I hate that fucking show.
Oh, I see.
But I see
Stalking.
I see that the English dub tried to make something out of it. That was the latter days of Funimation's golden era.
Mm-hmm.
But I still hated the fucking show. But Cyber City 880 wasn't Funimation, but it was a good example of they fucked with the script, but they made it better. Because these are three criminals in a gritty cyberpunk setting, so they put all this fucking cussing in it. To a ridiculous degree, but it made it so great. It added so much character and personality to the show. And then the UK version redid the soundtrack, because the soundtrack was a lot of generic Japanese synth and had a Japanese J-pop opening. The soundtrack for the UK version changed it to these cool rock tracks and made the opening this amazing rock instrumental, to where the version to watch is not the original Japanese. Fuck that shit. You want to watch the English dub with the European soundtrack. That shit is the shit. That show is amazing. And it's that's what we used to get when it would change the script. That's what we used to get when you see your localization. That's why when people bang on about localization back in the day, they changed. It's shut up, nerd. This is great.
Well, everybody brings up
this.
ghost stories too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
That's probably the most well-known example of, you know what, this script sucks, we're gonna throw it out and just do whatever the heck we want.
Yeah, they did that with it wasn't because the script sucks, but they did that with Samurai Pizza Cats, because they just didn't have the
script. They didn't. Yeah, exactly. And
we're just given the footage and that's it.
Samurai Pizza Cats, I believe, was the first anime that I really remember watching as a kid.
Yes, it's one of the first for me. Yeah, it was and that show is so revered, even Japan recognizes it. And whenever that show comes up, they bring it up as Samurai Pizza Cats. You can make changes and localizations and improve the product. And especially, it kind of pisses me off. Funimation still does that. So they're capable of doing their job. They just don't. Because when See, I feel fortunate that they don't fuck with the shows I like. Those are the shows that Funimation still like is old Funimation on. But I'm not gonna go like we'll stop whining to the people whose shows are being fucked with. You know what I mean? Like, they did a good job with Tanya, so you guys complaining about Dragon Maid should shut up. Like, no, they shouldn't have done it with Dragon Maid. But it's especially frustrating because they'll show that they can do it. They can still do their job. They just
refuse to because they want to piss off, the gamers. They want to piss off the anime gamers.
I don't think they want to piss anybody off. They want their good boy points. They want their tendies. Like, look, I put inclusion in the anime dub. Give me head pats. Give me head pats. I'm a good boy.
I've been doing a lot of research onto like Gamergate because I may or may not be writing a story about someone who got involved. It's a certain Quinlan person.
Yeah.
Anyway. My kind of conclusion from Gamergate is just like that's pretty much all media now is like they're gonna add cringe shit. Like they'll have like a good product, right? Initially, a fun product, but they're gonna hire people on either they went to like inclusive like colleges, or they're gonna have people like Anita Sarkeesian on. These people that are gonna be like problem checking to see if there's anything like offensive, and they're gonna be like, you should add this to be inclusive. You should add like a hashtag girl boss line and we all can think of a line off the top of our heads, I'm sure, where we're like, oh, it's cringe. And then we just kept watching the rest of the fucking movie or the anime. And that's what they're doing is they're adding little bits and pieces here into like what would be normally a good product to make you go, oh, it's fucking cringe. And then just move on. And I feel like that's like one of the biggest things that came from Gamergate is just people adding cringe stuff to act like they're better than everyone else.
Well, man, I could get into a whole thing, but like that's a subject for another show because we've been talking for a while. I don't know how much longer we'll be talking, but there's like a whole thing like basically the left wing political thing is just good. Like anybody ascribing to those politics is just inflamed now. Like it's a cult now that it wasn't before. Steve Bloom was not lefty boomer posting every day. Now that's all he does on Twitter.
Like you can't ever be good enough for these people too. I mean, look at like insert political figure here or whatever, internet contrarian, whatever. They've all been attacked by their own at some point, and then they cope and seethe about it whenever they get caught, or they boohoo, cry, and bitch, and then they eventually get uncanceled, whatever. And it's inevitably going to happen to every single one of these people. Like it happened to Lindsay Ellis because she compared like something that was inspired by Asian thing to another thing that was inspired by Asian thing, and it somehow made her racist. Fucking stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it goes, like I said, a little beyond that, because it's a lot of this just, it's a new religion, because you think of the church ladies, right? From back in like the 60s, 70s, whatever.
Because they're all a bunch of non-religious people, that's why.
It's just a new religion. So what they do, even the ones that do have a religion, so to speak, they just adopt this new one. So it's like the church ladies, they would talk about, oh, well, how much did you give to the church? Well, I gave this much. And at the church potluck, I made this, and I did all this stuff for the church.
Oh, you should have seen Susan. She is looking like a hussy by showing a little bit more of her ankles this time. Oh my God, I heard so-and-so was cheating on her husband. Oh my God.
It's not that. It's the what are you doing for the church? Oh, I do. Oh, you do that? Well, my son's a pastor. Like that I'm doing more for the cause that rules us, so I have more. It's like people without power wanting a little bit more and a little bit more, or people with like that do have quote unquote power, like enjoying it and wanting a little bit more, and like they appeal to that great ideology that rules over them, like an unseen. They basically they kiss up to an unseen king, so that they can gain more status, and that's what a lot of this is. So they'll put in that stupid line in that skating show like about my like non-binary bros, something like that, or
my non-binary
they throw that in there.
Hoes, whatever.
Yeah, they throw that in there so they can go to all their little friends that also believe in the cause and like, look what I did. Look what I did. I did that. We're look what we're doing at this company for inclusion.
I took this cross-dressing character and I made them explicitly trans.
Yeah. It's like, I'm doing my part. And you know what? It's the Starship Troopers
I'm doing my part.
Yeah, it's the Starship Trooper bit. They all want to go, I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part. So like the Funimation writer turning from like just typing in, non-binary hoes and like, I'm doing my part. That's what it is. That's every time you see this. It's some some low testosterone man with a weak beard and no hair and poor eyesight turning to the camera going, I'm doing my part.
I'm doing anything.
That's what it is. So
God.
it's frustrating because this did not exist back in the day. And that's a lot where a lot of this shit, it's part of where this localization problem started, was the political shit. Because you can argue like some of the jokes they would write into comedies, right? But the point was still, this is a comedy, put in a joke. Because that's
What
that's
are
the
jokes
tone.
if they're meant to be offensive? That's just offensive and hurts my feelings, Cody. You should cater to me specifically. Or be like one of those really awful comedians, female comedians are just like, oh my god, my pussy stinks, no one likes me, and you should respect me and my pronouns.
Yeah, the 2016 election was the death of entertainment in the West. That's when it died. That's you can trace that moment, and because that was when the movement had to double down, and there was a lot of reasons for that we could get into that I'm not going to, but that was the moment where the people that had this belief system, that's when it grew, like the fucking, the brainwashed sleeper cell agent, you say the code word and it activates them to go kill somebody.
MK
that
Ultra.
Was that was the fucking MK Ultra activation moment, was the 2016 election, and all of the fucking, like, all these people that have been I don't want to say brainwashed, just because I don't want to be a fucking, like, fuck the libs, and that shit. But the people that have been indoctrinated into this belief system had that activation, and now they are all doubling down. And that's when all the politics had to get thrown into medium. Like, we could go back to Gamergate, and that was sort of the snowball being rolled down the top of Everest. It's like when the first little snowball was like let go.
It was the first. What happened was it was the first rejection, the first, like, as a whole rejection against, like, this fucking neoliberalism. If I could speak, neoliberalism. Liberalism. Yeah. So it was even like, I was watching like old fucking gym videos too, where it's like you even had like older feminists being like, yeah, this stuff, social justice warrior stuff, this is fucking stupid. And the Gamergate was like the first public rejection of that. And it didn't even matter that fucking Zoe Quinn fucked 5 men. Like, that doesn't matter. What mattered is people were getting attacked for merely fucking sitting here, bro. Bro, I'm just sitting here playing my video games. And I happened to be white and straight. And people were feeling like they were getting fucking attacked every single goddamn day. And, you used to go in places like IGN and like a Kotaku to go like, okay, I'm going to like look up video game reviews. But you can't anymore because of the bullshit. And people were like, okay, we're going to reject your bullshit publicly. And it was just years of getting attacked over like just sitting here, bro. And I feel like that's the first like, semblance of that was just Gamergate. And now you have like all this bullshit being attached to every single goddamn piece of media to where it's forced and it's cringe and they can't even make their own product. Like, that's the thing. These people are so like uncreative and everything's problematic. They have to find creative people. And I've talked to creative people that work in these kind of industries. They don't believe half this shit that gets spout to them. So they have, creative people, they hire them on, they create a decent product, but then they have people like Anita Sarkeesian that problem check, and they say, you need to add this, or this isn't good enough. And they talk to these producers and exec just to make sure that they don't get fucking canceled and ate alive by the fucking mob machine. So Gamergate was the first, realization of that, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that was the foreshadowing to what would eventually happen with the 2016 election, and that's because if you look back into like when anime dubs started to become shit, and I don't want to hear the nerds that say they're always shit. Touch grass.
No. There's plenty of good dubs. Like, look at Full Metal Alchemist, one of the most popular animes ever. Like, it had a fantastic dub. Yeah,
and you look at when the dub started going to shit, and when Funimation started sort of to fall, and that was around that time was I think like 2015 basically was the year that it ended. The halcyon days of Western nerd media sort of ended.
Rip and pepperoni.
Yeah, and that from there on, I don't know how much longer it's going to last, but I feel like it is going to end, and it's going to end sooner than we think.
Well,
Because like you look at the anime dub problem, right?
uh-huh.
All it takes is one company that doesn't do it. That's all it takes. One company that gets any kind of presence that like adapts a show and just adapts it, and they'll maybe do the Funimation thing where they take some script liberties, and it's like good ones, and that's going to go viral. Like a line is going to get viral. Like, look what they made this character say. Oh, that line is so good, and like that's all it's going to take is one person doing that.
This is what my conspiracy theory. This is what I predict for the future, right? I think with all this Nazi shit, or everything the right is fucking terrible. You're all a bunch of racists. 20 years from now, we're going to look at this as like, oh, this was like the pre-satanic panic. This was like the mid-2010s satanic panic. Because, I mean, we look back at the satanic panic back in the 90s, people were like legit terrified of goths and potential Satanists because, you know, you had fucking, you know, Norwegian people burning churches.
Dungeons and Dragons, Satan's game.
Well, they all had their own reasons for doing things, but, you know, they were all like weird, creepy looking people. And they were like, oh, well, it's these goths and Satanists that are doing it. You know, and of course, you know, there's problematic people, like, no matter where you fucking look. It's just that now Nazis or whatever are the ones that are the current year Satanists. And then 20 years from now, when we're all super fucking old, we're going to be like, remember when everyone I disagreed with was a Nazi? You remember that? I remember.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it is going to end. I mean, I think people get so caught up in the fight. And I don't even know if they call it black pill, but like, I guess kind of black pill. But they get so caught up in the fight that they think like, oh, America's over or something like that. Yeah, no. We're already kind of seeing the waves of change now. I mean, I'm not going to get into politics. This ain't the place for it.
That's just how it works, though, right? It's like you'll have like more left-leaning politics and more right-leaning to go against the left-leaning, and then the left goes against the right.
Because it's a generational shift.
Yeah,
I think it's also kind of again. I'm not going to get into it. That's a discussion for another time. But I think that we're in a sort of a transformative time right now, and for in a good way. It's sort of like, you know, you're in the 5-act structure, and we're in the part now where the villain seems to be winning, but we all know where this goes.
You're thinking about the Strauss-Howe generational theory about how generations go in turnings, and we're technically in the 4th turning when it's the transition between the end of the old cycle, the start of the new. Yeah,
basically.
I'm looking for the Evangelion cycle where everything just goes to shit and everything just turns into a big trippy 60s, you know, metaphor for God and all that kind of shit. So, and depression and being a stupid coomer.
Here's the thing about Evangelion. It's a weird metaphor for the industry today. Because if you look at Evangelion, it started fine. It started like a normal show. With just like like using biblical like a coat of paint on, like, to make as a stylish coat of paint on the giant cyborg monsters fighting angels.
It's what made it stood out. If I can speak, stand out from the crowd. I'm sorry, y'all.
but then what happens to Evangelion? It gets railroaded by the director's own personal bullshit.
That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah. So Evangelion, it's a microcosm for what the anime industry as a whole is now going through. We are now stuck in the part where Shinji sits on a magic metaphor train by himself, saying that he is himself, and the self is composed of another self, and inside you there are 2 wolves. That's where we're at.
And they're both gay and yiffing.
Yeah. Like, that's... I love, by the way, Evangelion, that's a real line. Besides, not the 2 wolves thing, but they really did the inside you there are 2 wolves, and they did it for drama. I think it's the one where he gets pulled into like the shadow of an angel, and he goes into metaphor mind land, and it's the funniest shit in the world. And it's not supposed to be, and I love it. But like it's really what we're dealing with now.
Mm-hmm.
The entire industry has been pulled into the shadow of Hideaki Anno's insanity.
Yes. Well, like, I mean, he made Evangelion to piss off anime fans to begin with. So.
Not really. He was a lot of it early on was sort of deconstructions and based on like some very classic old Japanese media that inspired him. And then he got depressed and he started taking out his personal thing onto the characters and script. What he made to piss people off was End of Evangelion, because when Evangelion the series ended, people hated the ending so much that their fucking studio got vandalized. Like
I
Gainax
thought that was due to budget restraints, was why it was kind of shit at the end.
well,
too.
yeah, that was part of it, but the people, not the end. When I mean the movie called End of Evangelion.
Oh, okay.
So when the series ended, like, I mean, they got death threats, they got bomb threats, they got the Gainax studios vandalized. People went ape shit. So End of Evangelion was like, oh yeah, you want it better? Here's your ending, motherfucker, and that's why it ends the way it does.
Him
End
just
of
choking
Evangelion.
out Ashka on the beach, bloody
Evangelion.
beach.
End of Evangelion is Hideaki Anno's message to everyone that vandalized Gainax's offices. And that's the part where it's made to piss everybody off.
There's so many different ways to interpret Evangelion too in that kind of sphere, because people like to talk about the true meaning of Evangelion and how pretentious it is, and they're like, no, it's not actually pretentious. It's like a interesting talking point we could probably get more into, like in the podcast.
I mean, Anno himself has made statements on this, and a lot of it was not meant to be seen as much as it is, but it's mainly, like, I think like maybe halfway through the show, it just becomes his blog.
My Tumblr.
Yeah. He just starts...
Like sad boy posting Tumblr.
It's you know what it is? It's like the evolution of a goofy webcomic from the 2000s. How it'll start out maybe like gag a day or have some kind of idea, and then it goes off the rails as
and then it starts about abortion.
Also just starts putting like maybe his interests or his feelings or whatever into the comic, and then it's like you look at the first couple issues, it's like, oh, it's about a group of friends
two guys sitting on a couch, and then by like 10 years down the road, they're entering hell because they have to fight God.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about more of like the Lost thing, where he made a fucking comic about his girlfriend having like losing
abortion.
their baby.
Yeah, good old Tim Buckley.
But that's what happened with Control Delete, though. There was guys on the couch, and then it became all this drama shit, and it ends with like a timeline reset because of the robots take over the world. And he made me watch as he strangled her right in front of me. That's what Evangelion was. Evangelion was the anime equivalent of a 2000s webcomic, and that's why it's so inexplicably popular, because so were those 2000s webcomics. Look at the following Mega Tokyo had for the longest time.
I was about to bring up Mega Tokyo, actually.
Yeah. Like that's Evangelion.
He's
that's
literally me.
That's what it was. And that's one of the things kind of frustrating. Just I miss Evangelion was just, again, such a microcosm for all this bullshit we're dealing with. Even like the story being written, being driven by depression. It's like so much anime now. And it's like I miss imagination. I miss concepts and story. I miss
or like if you're gonna make it like a depressing anime, like make it different. Just make it about a Coomer main character who like fucks his life up, Well,
it's like they did that with Overlord and Tanya. They took Overlord is a combination of two of the worst genres to come out of Japan, and is one of the best things to come out of Japan in years.
I will say I really enjoyed Me when it first came out. I fuck with Me. But then it's like that's what so many anime is about nowadays. It's just like a Coomer boyfriend that neglects his everything, and then he wants to kill himself. So, I mean, Me was really different for at the time, but it was also like trying to talk about otaku culture and how fucking degenerate it was too back in the day. Yeah, that was like 2012, I believe, too.
But like, that's kind of where the really good anime you get these days. I mentioned this earlier. It's manga, because like you see like anime original or light novel based, and it's what you said. It's recycling so much. Or like I said before, it's like emotional crutches. And then like you'll see something like compare if Chainsaw Man came out, because I don't know if they're going to make an anime of that. I haven't heard anything, but maybe
they are going to make an anime of Chainsaw Man.
But like let's take Chainsaw Man on its own, right? With the premise that it has. And here's the thing: I myself am not into Chainsaw Man, but it's one of those things where like I just have personal issues with it, but I recognize why people can like it. It's not one of those things where like, how do people like this? It's shit. Like, no, I get why people like it. There's things that I can't vibe with. But you look at that on its own, right? If it was just an anime, compare that premise to like the 80 fucking harem shows, or the 80 fucking isekais, or the 80 fucking in a setting with made up term where special groups called made up terms that are young people with special powers have to fight made up term, a bunch of giant monsters in this fictional setting. This girl and this guy will unlock the truth and the conspiracy behind the made up term. You know, the ocean of that. And where did that cool premise come from? Manga. And you have something like No Guns Life. They had an anime of that recently. That's fucking cool as shit. Where did that come from? Manga. Are you familiar with No Guns Life?
I'm not.
It's a future noir show of a guy that is in a sort of world of cybernetics. A guy wakes up, doesn't know how he got there, and all of a sudden now he has a gun for a head. And his memories are gone. All he knows is that somebody did something to him and basically gave him a gun for a head, and he has guns in his hands.
Cool.
And he basically gets swept up into this whole thing of like this conspiracy of why he ended up like this, and trying to find out what happened to him and all this stuff. And then he like pals around with this girl that he needs a friend because someone has to shoot the gun he has, because the gun he has for a head has a trigger on the back of his head. So she's the one that fires his head.
Hot.
And it's great. It has a great atmosphere to it. The art of the original manga is fantastic. I remember people were passing around the pages where he like gun punches a fucking train, and it looked gorgeous. And it's great.
That's another thing, is like the quality of manga has been going up the fucking rails, especially like the past, like I said, like the past 10 years too. Like, holy shit, it's like mind-blowing what these artists are doing, and it's like every specific deal. I feel like one of the best things that Berserk ever influenced was art and manga.
Yeah, I think it actually wasn't so much Berserk, because Berserk's been around for a while. Berserk was around during the age of simplistic anime girls in manga, like even like you look at what Naruto's art became and how prevalent that simplistic, very almost lazy look was. Berserk was around back then. I think what really did it was One Punch Man. I think Punch Man, because that was so mainstream and had such Yusuke Murata's amazing fucking art, was like, with Miura gone now, Murata is the greatest living comic artist. And I think that raised the bar, and a lot of people learned from that, like the way he depicted action, because Miura's always existed in this realm, I think, where he didn't really inspire people because people almost resigned themselves thinking, I'll never be that good. Like, there's no point in trying to achieve that, because that's so beyond all of us. Don't even worry about it. You're never going to be as good as Miura, so don't even worry about it. I think Murata coming along and also having art of that level and being able to depict things that were like, because Berserk was always also very mature. So if you were a shonen artist, let's say, you probably weren't going to try to achieve Miura, I mean. But Murata, this is like a more mainstream thing. This is like kind of shonen. And he's got stuff like this. So now, this guy is your competition. Miura is like another world. But then here's somebody comparable to Miura that just came into your world. And that, I think, stepped it up. Because now everyone's like, oh, well, look at how this guy's doing action. It's way better than our action. Look, this guy's doing just shots of these like superhero-looking things that kids love. He's kicking our ass in that. So that I think, drove a lot of artists. Because a lot of manga artists sort of follow the leader, because a lot of that simplistic anime look came from like Rumiko Takahashi, for instance. So her manga blew up, and then you see like all the cute looking manga that came after that.
Because
like,
of Urusei Yatsura.
Yeah. And you look at like how many people tried to have that simplistic cute look. And then you had like all the people influenced by Akira Toriyama, and look at all the people influenced by Fist of the North Star. So I think it was Yusuke Murata coming in that goosed the manga, the entire industry, because now everybody's got to step their art game up, because that shit's out there, and that's big, and it's competing with you. Because it's, again, Berserk was not your competition. Berserk was like an omnipresent figure in the industry. You didn't have to worry about Berserk stepping on your toes. You had your place, he had his. Now here comes this high-level art taking your place. And that was another reason to love Yusuke Murata, because that motherfucker came in and raised the bar that now everybody has to get up there. And that's why we're getting so much good manga art now. Because you have to. Because you're now competing with that guy. And it's great. It's fucking great. I think we're seeing a simultaneous manga renaissance, and this as are the Western comics industry languishes.
Rip.
You have this manga renaissance at the same time. And I think the fact that they're both happening at the same time is part of why manga is just kicking Western comics' ass. Because it would be just, manga's doing better, but the fact that there is such a disparity in the numbers, I think, is because of like this simultaneous.
The quality is just not there in like Western comics anymore. And they're kind of boring and predictable too.
Well, that's why you gotta go indie.
It's like different.
I think also more people need to support Western indie comics, because that's where a lot of the new ideas are.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people are afraid to support them because with a lot of the manga stuff, they're by a publisher, so there's someone vetted this to make you think that this might be worth reading, right?
Yeah.
There was some kind of stamp of approval from somebody. With indie comics, nobody read this before. You have no idea whether this is going to be any good or not. None. You have to take a risk. People generally don't like that. They don't like to, and I kind of get it, because you don't want to have your time wasted.
And your money wasted, most importantly.
Yeah. But I think more people have to start giving indie comics more of a... And I'm not just saying this because I do comics.
Oh, Mr. Indie Comic Person is telling us to give him money. I see.
Well, I mean, even the smaller publishers like Boom Studios, they're doing great stuff with Power Rangers. I mean, the Lord Dracon saga, that was incredible.
Yeah. Like, even if you're too scared to go like the crowdfunding stuff, right? Just try the little publishers. Or like I talked about this site, because I got picked up by a small publisher, and they told me about this site that I should start putting my stuff on. It's called Crypto Comics. They're just starting out. They're on beta right now, and I think like a lot of people should check. There's a lot of good stuff on there that you could just try it out. You just read it, see if you like it, and that's what a lot of indie stuff is on there. And you could just, because they're doing a whole new model with crypto and blockchain, where it's giving digital comics the kind of value that print comics do, because the comics themselves are on a blockchain. So, like, say you sell, like, you can't duplicate, if you duplicate it, it's not the same comic that's on the blockchain. And you can sell the comic on crypto comics, and that comic has value because it has transactional, a record of transactions and a certain amount of comics on this blockchain. So they're using blockchain to basically give value to digital comics. And they have a thing right now where you can just you can read it on the site. You don't have to buy it. But you could buy a copy of these comics, and then they appreciate in value, like a regular comic would. But this is a great way. There's a lot of indie publishers on there. It's a great way to just try stuff out. So I would recommend, if you really want to just take a look at like stuff you've never heard of to see if it's any good, go to Crypto Comics. That's one way that you can dip into the indie scene. There's a lot of indie stuff that is kind of derivative, but it's more derivative in that this is what inspired this artist. This is what inspired this writer. Like, this guy really liked this kind of thing, and he wants to make his own. And there's some neat ideas in a lot of this stuff. And again, these are a lot of small publishers, so this might help you find something that you like, a publisher that, this is a good stamp of quality if these people put it out, And
that's ultimately how to save the industry, is that you have to support people that are doing great things, because the people that aren't doing great things will look at the people doing great things and say, I want to be that, I want to do that, and slowly but surely all of these major publishers will start moving away from the slop they're producing now and start looking towards these indie creators and trying to match their quality, try to match their talent. And I mean, they won't succeed, but at least it'll move the industry in a positive direction, closer to that of what's going on in Japan.
Yeah. I think that's how you save this industry, is just we have to start looking, because people are making good shit in the West. But it's not under a banner. It's not DC. It's not Marvel. Your favorite superheroes are dead. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can move on. And if you want to just stick to the Japanese stuff, okay. But the West is making some good shit. And I would definitely recommend people like check it. Go to like the Indiegogo right now. Just check. They have a whole comic section. You could just check out what they got. Check out the pitches. They usually these things will show sample pages, and you could tell from the sample pages whether or not it looks like your kind of cup of tea. And there's all kinds of crazy different stuff on there, like stuff that's nothing like what you would think. Or like stuff that's more of a high concept, or stuff that has like crazy artwork. Now there's stuff that doesn't look professional at all, and I wouldn't recommend anybody give it money. But you don't have to. You can just look. You can just go, or you can go to Crypto Comics and just thumb through some comics and see what you like. But there's like all kinds of stuff that I think if Western comics are going to be saved, people are going to have to go into new horizons.
Save the West from comics. By making white babies to save the Western comics. We gotta reclaim it from the Japanese.
But jokes aside, I think like there's a lot to save with the Western comics. There's a lot worth having there. And I'm all for using manga to dunk on Marvel and DC and all that crap and the Western comic.
Certainly they've earned it.
Yes, definitely. And I get a schadenfreude giggle every time I see like that was it like Demon Slayer has outsold everything Marvel and DC has put out combined. Like that's what you like. Joker clip meme. You get what you fucking deserve.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to see, because I know people get caught up in a good fight, and I don't want to see like the entire Western comics market just get teabagged on because everybody's like enjoying the weeb rush when there's so much good shit out there by so many good authors that like it would just be a damn shame. And again, I'm saying this having nothing, full disclosure, yes, I make comics. I'm not even talking about mine. As much as I think I'm very good at it, I'm not talking about mine. I just off the top of my head think of some stuff that I saw on Indiegogo. They're like, I don't want to see that die because everybody wants to dunk on Western comics. I don't want to. I think of some things I've seen on Crypto Comics. That looks cool as shit. I don't want to see that die. And there's like Western comics I would like to see come back. I want to see like some of the smaller stuff in the West succeed. I mean, look at Invincible, right? I mean, that's ended, but Robert Kirkman has made some good shit. We have some good shit in the West. Perhaps he will make good shit again. I don't know if he's still writing Walking Dead or if he's done or what he's doing. But I would like to see another Robert Kirkman come up and make something like that. I would like to see more people like that. And it's kind of on us, like the consumer, to do that, to allow that to happen. Because you look at Invincible, and even if you don't like the show, let me tell you, the comic is so much better than the show. It's not even funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. And yes, more please. I see something like that, some of the really good Western comics, I say more please. Or like, one thing that the West has over Japan, when we do a comic adaptation of a game, we have so many better fucking things. Because like they do like very cashed out manga adaptations for when like a game comes out. It's like very like punch clock kind of thing. Like, oh, here's the first level. Continue the adventures.
Just a generic fighting game.
Yeah. Or like look. There's a lot to make fun of it, but you can't deny that fucking Sonic the Hedgehog comic went places.
I knew you were gonna go there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It had its own life completely separate from the game.
Yeah. Like
I heard like a lot of the Sonic fans love the comics.
Yeah, I'm like both ways in the comic, because the comic has ups and downs. It has some ridiculous shit, and it has some really cool shit. It has some cool shit that my friends and I will still laugh about and enjoy of like how great that was to this day. The comic version of Dr. Eggman is one of the best fucking comic villains I've ever seen. But then it had like the Ken Penders shit. And we all know about the Ken Penders shit.
Yeah.
And
I don't. I'm sorry. I'm out of the club.
There could be an entire episode of this show just dedicated to talking about that.
Sonic comics?
Or the Ken Penders.
Just Ken Penders.
See, Ken Penders, he was like the head writer of the Sonic comics for a while, and he is a crazy person, with some clear, obvious. How does one describe Ken Penders? I don't know if he's beyond description. He is a thing that should not be. He is written only in the pages of the Necronomicon. You can't wrap your brain around Ken Penders. But he's a fucking weirdo, and he did some really fucking weird shit in that Sonic comic.
Nothing pervy, right?
Kind of pervy?
Kinda.
Oh.
I mean, he had like shit that wasn't in the comic. I don't know if he actually wanted to be in there, but it was in his head canon. Like the whole Princess Sally lost her virginity to what's that guy, Joffrey?
Wait, that's a
In his head?
canon thing that Sonic characters fuck?
In his head. Remember, he was the lead writer, so it depends on how you take it, because he was fired and replaced with a much better writer, Ian Flynn. Ian Flynn's kind of a D-bag, but the guy can write a good story. At least when it comes to, at video games. Because he did the Mega Man comic Archie had for a while. The Mega Man comic was the tits. And I am so mad that it was canceled, because I fucking love Mega Man. It's just my jam. And that comic was amazing. And I wanted more of it. And it just ended. I'm not over it.
I was hardcore into Mega Man around the time that the Bob and George comic became popular.
Yeah, I grew up with Mega Man. I grew up with Mega Man to the point where I played Mega Man 2 when I was so young, I do not have memories of playing it for the first time. I've played Mega Man longer than my brain has retained memories. So I fucking love this series. So like the Mega Man comics, like, oh yes, this is a comic adaptation of Mega Man. Mwah! Yes! So like the West kicks Japan's ass with comic adaptations of video games. Like, I would love to see Super Mario Brothers comic. That thing would be fun as hell. I can just
we're getting a movie on that by what's their face?
Movie adaptations a little less so in terms of their quality.
What is fuck? I'm trying to remember off the top.
Illumination?
Illumination, yeah, them. They're very generic, like, haha, we don't go like really too far. We just do generic, like, funny comedy, family comedy movies. That's it.
Like, there's a lot of areas that we kick the West's ass. I mean, the West kicks...
We kick our own ass.
Yeah. We've been kicking our own ass lately. Where the West kicks Japan's ass. And I feel like if we're gonna let that blossom, we gotta let that blossom, you know what I mean? So anyone listen to this, once you're done, you know what? Head on over to Indiegogo and Crypto Comics. Just look for something cool. I guarantee you'll find it. And then maybe think, when you do find it, what else did you miss when you weren't looking at Indiegogo or Crypto Comics for something cool? Something that was there that you don't know about, that you would have thought was the shit. But you don't know, because you were so busy just reading manga and dancing on Western Comics' grave, that there's this whole scene that I would love to see blow up. I would love to see the rise of the indie comic, and I think we're like the ingredients are there, right? Invincible, the TV show is blowing up.
Well, a lot of it on webtoons. I know, like a lot of the Zoomers and younger kids, they loved webtoons and all that, and keeping up with maybe young 20-something artists on there. Because webtoons is completely free, right?
Yeah,
but they love that shit.
Yeah, that kind of thing too. And I think something from webtoons even got an anime adaptation. So
whoa.
I think that Tower of God show is from a webtoon. So the ingredients are there, right? Everything's in place. People just gotta make that leap. You gotta do it. And if there's any takeaway you get from this episode, is we've talked about a lot of shit. That's the thing to take away, is there is still hope for Western comics, but you gotta make it happen.
Also, don't be a depressed Coomer.
Yes, don't be a depressed Coomer. Real women are awesome, let me tell you. They are awesome. Just don't be weird. And recognize when they're weird, because real women are awesome until you stick your dick in crazy. Don't stick your dick in crazy. It doesn't matter how lonely you are.
That's a whole other discussion. We can get into desperation. Why you
don't
settle for less.
Yeah, don't be that, because I know a lot of people look, 2D's better with 3D, because she might get on you for...
You might cut your cock off.
Or oh, I didn't consent to the... Know the signs, and if you know the signs, women are awesome. But that, and then support indie comics. There's so much good shit out, because that's basically just manga. It's the same thing. It's a creator-owned, creator-driven story. It's the same goddamn thing. And I think a lot of people don't realize that indie comics are the same root as manga. Manga is just it's like an alternate. Japan's in an alternate reality where indie comics became the big thing. It wasn't Cape Comics. It wasn't these corporate-driven superhero comics that go on forever and no one can ever die. It's individual stories written by an author who has full control over the story, over the character. Except for like the editor will tell them, hey, don't do this, take a little this way, that way. But in general, it's this person's baby. Like Dragon Ball was not written by 20 writers that came in at different arcs. And no, it was written by Akira Toriyama who did what the fuck he wanted to do. And that's what indie comics are. That is exactly what they are. It's written by this one guy who does what he wants to do.
That's
So
pretty based in Red Pill.
Yeah. So if you
so,
dig manga, check out indie comics.
Yeah, so we look to how Japan does it, essentially, to save Western comics rather than just abandoning them altogether just because the Japanese are doing it better.
The mainstream is shit right now, yeah.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. I feel like that's the direction things are going to go, right?
I mean, it's so much easier to brand yourself and make your own shit, especially with the internet, because that's the way to go, honestly. It's not be like, please, Senpai Corporation, notice me giving money. It's like having a cult-like personality on the internet and then growing a fan base through that, whatever your creation is.
Yeah.
Plus, it's free to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. And hell, if you've got an idea out there, fucking go for it. If you can't draw, hire someone. Do you know how many artists out there that would fucking kill for a regular paying gig?
Or like, holy shit, like people like making their own animations. Like, look at fucking Hell of a Boss and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's so many things you can do whenever you just get a group of creatives together and you make something fantastic. Like, there's so many things you could do as long as you're paying the money, obviously. But like, it's as long as you have the funds or you have people willing to help you to put the hard work in. There's so many things you can do that just self-advertise.
Yeah, and look where they're at now. Look at how many famous indie artists are getting their own project. Smiling Friends got greenlit for Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Fucking finally. Newgrounds Boys are making it. You got Friday Night Funkin' blowing up. Indie creators in all these fields finally starting to realize, we're finally starting to see, because I think what happened is in the West, we got a little too comfortable with big companies that just churn out products for us. We didn't have to make it ourselves.
Boring, predictable product.
Even there was a time when they weren't, right?
One of the most profound things Jay from Red Letter Media says was just keep your mouth shut, just keep consuming product and don't question product. Like,
because that's what it led to. Because we used to have a time when these big studios would pick up some kind of showrunner that had an idea, and they might fight him, but the showrunner would put out something good. Not all the time, obviously, but it would happen enough that the showrunner would put out something good, and then we would accept it, and then that's just sort of what we got used to was products coming from corporations. I mean, look at The Simpsons, right? That's Fox. It's a big old corporation that makes all these other shows. And I'm talking about old Simpsons, obviously. Mm-hmm. You look at all these other shows that we dug, and you look at all the other shows and products that we dug, and it all come from a big ass fucking corporation that just picked up some creative. The creative did not have to strike out on their own. Someone came along and did it for them. And we got too comfortable with that. And then the companies just started to screw us and push their own weird culty shit. And now it's like, well, all our entertainment is dead. What do we have now? Every big corporation that makes entertainment is shoving some message or ideology down our throat. We don't have escapism anymore. Well, that's because before we realized it, we were letting all our escapism come from big corporations. We weren't getting escapism from any kind of small or localized source. Occasionally you would get an indie comic or something like that. Occasionally something independent would blow up. But largely it was these big companies. And then all the big companies turned on us and we have nothing now, so we're going to another country for it. So I think we're going to have to start realizing that we got too comfortable. We got too complacent. We just sat back and let the big TV companies and big movie companies just throw shit at us. I mean, you think of any major movie that's like, oh, this is a cinematic achievement. Look at how many of them are independent films. How many of them came from a big studio, So I think now we've sort of we let these big companies get too much of a stranglehold on all of our escapism. And I think it's time. I don't know. I feel like we're going to realize this. I would just prefer we do it sooner rather than later so that I can have some more fucking things to watch and read.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're gonna have to realize that we gotta get off that. We gotta get off the let go of the big company training wheels, get off the corporate teat, and just start giving people a chance. Start looking for something. Entertainment is basically like the problem the internet has now of it being too centralized. That's the problem the entertainment industry's had for too long. Everything's been too centralized, and we have to start like, what's that comic over there? What's that thing over there? And then as these artists build up something new, like look, I don't like Vivzy Puff's stuff. I don't know her real name. I forget her real name. I don't like her stuff, but I like that she puts effort into it, and I like what she did. Like, I don't enjoy her
Hot Topic.
Yeah, I don't enjoy her work, but I'm happy for her, and I'd like to see more stuff like that. And I'm glad she did it. I'm glad she got that Has Been Hotel thing. I'm glad she got this stuff because she worked for it. She made something. That's what I want to see more of. I'm glad that the Smiling Friends guys, I'm glad these Newgrounds creators are blowing up because they absolutely deserve to. They've put in the work and they're doing something that's their something. And that's what we need to see more of. And I guess that's my little final closing statement. Support independent creators.
Yeah, I think it's speaking of getting off. I think we need a. I think we've. I don't know. I think this was a good podcast. How about you, Gator?
I definitely think so. We covered a lot of different topics from
it was
the
supposed
Degeneracy.
to be about Toonami.
Yeah, that was kind of my idea. I was like, oh yeah, we'll just talk about like, our experiences with like Toonami. And I guess we actually did kind of go into that, talking a little bit about how Funimation used to be like really on the ball. Even when they were changing stuff for the better, and how everything just kind of, when the paradigm shifted 2016, everything shifted with it, including the dubbing.
I feel like we could like maybe do like a whole like history of Toonami though, like maybe later. Like get little like bullet points, like okay, this Toonami thing, this Toonami thing, this Toonami thing, and just kind of like mumble on whatever.
Especially when you talk about like the rise of the popularity of the anime scene, because we talked a lot about like the anime scene and kind of its inflection points, its growth points, and things where it just started to shift into a really weird subculture. You could really track the growth of Toonami and like the different anime that were present on the block, kind of show how these particular anime shifted the community.
Swim.
Adult Swim.
I remember there was a time Adult Swim was the greatest shit in the world. It was like, oh, finally, it's what I always wanted. Cartoon Network's gonna show like, the quote unquote adult oriented stuff. It's not just like you trying to scrape some of it from Toonami or something, like with like, oh, it's a cool anime, but they clearly cut out the blood and tits. Like finally, and it was the greatest shit in the world, and then just kind of became this weird. We suck off Tim and Eric. Look how weird everything we make is.
Everything became shit when IRL was like the main thing, and I do like some of it. I like Eric Andre. All right. There's certain bits and pieces I like, but like I don't know. I think that Tim and Eric's probably like super fucking overhyped. I've never really understood the humor.
You get Tim and Eric's humor. I like Tim and Eric, but I like it because you get the humor more if you know where it's coming from, and if you've ever seen that awkward like public access types TV and shit like that, or those old like if anybody's familiar with Everything Is Terrible. Yeah, I don't know if anyone know what that is, but if you're familiar with that kind of stuff, that's what Tim and Eric's really coming from. And I here's the thing: I think Tim and Eric are very funny, or they've clearly exhausted their comedy pool and they're done. But they were very funny. But I don't think Adult Swim should have based its entire identity around
gone all in on Tim and Eric shows.
Yeah,
and everything was based around Tim and Eric and that kind of like random sense of humor.
It's like trying to capture that random awkwardness, but not getting it because Tim and Eric wasn't random. It was that it was that amateurishness, awkwardness that they tried to capture.
You know who's great at that though? Red Letter Media. They do
Yeah,
it so
they do it-
good.
They do it very differently though. Red Letter Media is more like bad movies when they try to capture that, like they did with Space Cop.
Hmm.
Like they're going more like
Just
direct to
awkward
video
dialogue and
Yeah,
awkward. Clearly not comfortable being there.
Yeah, Tim and Eric was more like, if you've ever seen that, I'm the best, man. I did it. Like weird videos like that. Like there's like these strange artifacts that you find that's just the most awkward shit. Like almost like cursed videos, like cursed media. And that's what Tim and Eric was sort of like their inspiration. And I think that's one of the reasons they ran out of steam is that you can only do that joke for so long. But the problem was that Adult Swim just liked them so much. And they just, that scene in South Park where they were mocking boy bands, where the girls got to be backstage with the band, and as soon as the band came out, all the little girls just went, and their mouths just popped open.
Mm.
And
the Johnny's tingle.
Yeah, what that joke was. That's what Adult Swim did with Tim and Eric. Just all their mouths just popped open like a blow up doll. For Tim and Eric, and that's what turned Adult Swim to shit. Because that's why we lost world peace. That's why we lost $1 Million Stream world peace.
Yeah, because fucking Tim Heidecker had a fucking conniption at Sam Hyde.
Yeah, but I clearly it was. I mean, let's be real. I like Tim and Eric, but Sam Hyde and MDE do that strange, awkward humor way better. Because like Tim and Eric is derivative of the kind of thing that I said that they're inspired by, and that's fine. But MDE is like taking it to. It's like they've ascended past that. They've ascended past the cursed videos into some. They've like Sam Hyde has tapped in to the.
It's like surrealist art almost.
Yeah, like the fucking the.
It's like it's based in reality, but it's so far like in its own like sphere where it's like it's recognizable of like this is what it's supposed to represent, but it's its own kind of sense of humor, its own piece of art.
Sam Hyde has tapped into the Akashic records of social awkwardness and comedy.
Yes, that is basically what I'm looking for. Is he went further beyond into like the depths and the origins of this bizarre like surreal comedy and found like the deeper wellspring and tapped into that. Whereas Tim and Eric tapped into something more aesthetically.
It's more like a lot of it. His messaging too is just like because he ultimately it's all like comedian. He's all bullshit, but it's like it's based on his like knowledge of the earth and how people interact with each other. It's like the whole early and often thing. That's like a very fucking real message that he's trying to bring out to people. Like, you should like make fun of these social degenerates so they don't do something really chaotic later in life. Much like how Cody's trying to interact with people. Don't be a social degenerate. You might be like Mr. Anime.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
All right. I think I really do have to start getting ready and go. So I think that we should I had fun with this podcast. How about you guys?
I had a good time. I'm glad you had me on.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. Great first episode for the Anime Boomer podcast. We're going to be working on this probably once or twice a month, kind of starting out, and we'll see where it goes from there. As people's schedules we're trying to work around a bunch of different things. So we recorded this episode on a Friday afternoon. So, for now, I think the episodes are going to be recorded, but maybe there'll be some live streams and stuff coming down the tube at some point. There's a lot of stuff to work on. I'm recording the video of this, but there's not really much to really see because, we're still working on things like logos and all that. So I just used the good old GATORTIME set, even though it's not really a GATORTIME.
I want a spaceship.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get a spaceship, I guess, and maybe like a Gundam in the hangar.
Some Toonami looking set, and that'll fit the theme.
That'd be fucking cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. I could be a robot. Spooky can be like a.
And we're all holding like Monster Energy drinks. That'd be fucking cool.
Yeah, that would be pretty great. I like this already. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I want to thank Cody from Anime Outsiders for being on the show.
Yay!
And also want to thank Spooky Weep Trash for co-hosting.
Coming up with the whole idea, essentially.
Yeah, and coming up with the whole fucking thing.
I just need to get my my boomer microaggressions out and talk shit about. Remember when things were fun and nostalgic? Oh, it's not that anymore, huh? So I need to get a bunch of like mid-20s to late 30s to get around and just agree with me. Just be like, just bitch for like an hour and a half. That's that's fun to me.
Yeah, I had a good time. This is really cool. I'll definitely come back on again if you guys ask me if my schedule works out, but most of the time it should.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any plugs we're doing before we go, or
My butthole.
that's funny?
Go ahead and talk about anything you want to talk about, really.
All right, well, I plugged Crypto Comics. The only thing I really have to plug was Anime Outsiders, animeoutsiders.com. We're kind of in a break from new content for a little while. We just had nothing to write about. So if you want to catch up on all our bullshit, this is the perfect time while we're on this sort of little sort of lull. Check out we got reviews and articles that aren't cringy and embarrassing, and stuff. If you genuinely want to know what's a good show, and that's a good show, and not just because it pushes some otaku nerd buttons, check out our reviews. I stand by our reviews. We got the best reviews. I'm gonna go full Trump on this. We got the best reviews.
We got the best reviews. No one can ever step on our reviews.
Yeah. No other anime site that's got reviews as trustworthy as AO's reviews. We got the best reviews. And if you're looking for like a little more of a Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing, you check out my comic Cloud Scratcher, cloudscratcher.com. Don't be scared by the animal people. There's no sex in it. It's just fun action adventures for all ages. That's about it.
All right, go ahead, Spooky.
I'm Spooky Weeb Trash. Woo! I haven't touched my channel in months just because I'm working on other projects. I've hinted at them. The best place to get in contact with me is at Spooky Web Trash, my friend Spooky Web Trash, that's SPOOKYWEB, to keep all up to date with all my bullshit. I guess, I don't know, follow my Instagram if you want to see titties. I don't know. It's the same name.
That's a good plug.
Yeah.
All right, and you can find me, Gator, twitter.com/thegatorgamer, youtube.com/thegatorgamer, trovo.live/thegatorgamer for when I actually do a Gator Time or a gaming stream or anything of that sort. I want to thank you guys for listening to this podcast. We hope to record many more talking shit about the anime community and I guess things tangentially related to anime, as we've been kind of rambling on.
Nostalgia posting too, also that.
Yeah, nostalgia posting is important because it is a boomer-themed podcast reminiscing about the good old days. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.